We're not. Well, sorry guys, we got copyright striked. So that's right. It's learning experience. We won't harm YouTube again. We've learned our lesson, but hopefully Fan Footy doesn't mind that we're promoting their website. So we can still talk about the game. Just obviously won't have what happened there? Cool. Yeah. But we just won't obviously have that stuff happening. So yeah.
Understandable, but
let's not do that. Yeah. It happens, right? It happens. Yeah. Joe's laughing at us, but that's all right. It's like teething experience, learning experience here, Joe. First time doing a live game, that's all right. So I think we were talking about a little bit before we got cut off, about like running loopholes and that kind of thing. I guess my kind of mindset is you don't want to run into the game and at least kind of thinking about hamstringing yourself by not having, a player being there automatically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather feel like, hey, all my players are going to play than, okay, well, 3 or 4 weeks in, I know I'm going to have someone who's not playing, so too bad.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, do you know, already interesting that we were talking the other day about taggers early in the season, how it doesn't usually happen. It takes usually 5 or 6 teams, go with their system. But already last week in the match sim, there seemed to be a couple of teams already going tagging, and McGuinness has gone straight to Dacos today.
Yeah.
And we were thinking, who at Collingwood would you even tag outside of Nelly Dacos? He's probably their best ball mover, but yeah, very interesting that they have tagged him straight up.
Yeah. Well, we saw the trend last year a little bit with teams tagging that kind of halfback flankers. Like I know Dale got tagged a little bit. Sinclair definitely got tagged. I think Dacos definitely did for a little while as well. So I guess you can kind of put anyone anywhere these days, right? Like your tagger used to be the midfield type player, but now they're forward pressure type players.
But yeah, it's funny because it usually does take some time before teams go with that. They usually just back in their systems, but clearly Hawthorn know their system's not going to stand up against some of these better sides. And McGuinness, that's probably his strength anyway. So yeah, he is definitely doing the run with role. Mason Cox starting as the ruck again, first ruck.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, that's really put Darcy Cameron just strike through him. Unless Cox goes down, it's not happening for us there.
Yeah. Well, it worked quite well for them last year. So, why not start again this year, right?
Yep. As the as I was talking about before, I've got Hawthorn very much wooden spoon team. You move on Mitchell or Mira, that experience. I think Sam Mitchell realizes this is a kind of a free crack to get, fast track development. The prize of having Harley Reid there is potentially the best player in the under 18s, and I don't think it's a case of potential. And that we've seen it the last few years. Ashcroft we knew was going to be number one. Dacos, even though he should have gone number one, was looking the best player that year. Walsh, Sullivan are just clear number one players, and Harley Reid, we've seen that for the last sort of 12 months, 18 months, that he looks like he's going to be the number one this year. So for particular Hawthorn, North Melbourne, who look the most likely, definitely be a great asset for either of those midfields. Probably more Hawthorn, because I think they probably needed a little bit more than what North do, with the fact that you guys have picked up Wardlaw, who's going to we don't know when we're going to see the best of him just because of his injuries, but absolute ball. And then the age of sort of Simpkin and LDU being quite young. You've got Powell, Phillips, so you've actually got a lot more midfield options, as good as Reid would be. Like Reid would come in and be one of your better midfields. Where Hawthorn, on the other hand, they got Ward last year. They've got Newcomb, but outside of that, they're a bit more thin in that position. So it's not. I'm not saying Hawthorn are trying to tank, but some of the list management decisions have made me feel like that's the game. That's who cares if we have one bad year? Let's put games into these young kids, and at the same time, if we can pick up some more young talent, and not just young talent, but the best uber talent to put in that'll set them up for a long time. No, but you guys saw that probably better than anyone with North Melbourne all those years where you were in the mix playing either prelims or you're playing around the that 8th, 9th, 10th spot. As much as it gives fans hope, does it really put you on the path to a premiership compared, because you're always getting that 8th to 12th best player every year. If you do go to the draft where, we've seen how many teams, Melbourne had that one year they popped down, Jackson Pickett coming to their side, bang, premiership a couple of years later. Richmond gone down the bottom, even Collingwood, and then they got a bit more lucky picking up Dacos, but then had that bounce back. The Swannies had one poor year, you pick up some talent, and all of a sudden they're back up in the mix again. And you're seeing guys like Warner and Goulden and stuff. And they obviously help because they're able to picking up Heaney and Mills. And Geelong have had the same with the father and son. So there is some luck with the draft too. But the reality is the top teams have high talent on their list, no matter how they've got them. So it's how do you get the high talent in? If you can't trade them in, well, unfortunately, finishing picks 18th, 17th, 16th is your best hope to fast track that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting kind of predicament to be in. I think North's problem versus a lot of other teams was never being able to really develop the players. So we had a lot of guys who were, high draft picks, even guys around that kind of teens mark from being kind of mid-range. But it was also, 3 years later we delist them, or 6 years later we delist them. There'd never be any trade value from those players. Like, really the best player in the last 10 or so years we've traded is Ben Brown. Outside of that, maybe Taron Thomas was worth something a couple of years ago. Some teams were after him. St Kilda were kind of after Cherry a little bit, but we never really had draft value. So I don't mind finishing mid-table, but you have to be able to facilitate it a little bit. Like a Brisbane, for example. Brisbane were finishing a little bit like that as well, and then they grabbed to Nocky Neal, and then they're doing a lot better. So, yes, they also had stinker runs, but it wasn't like Cam Rayner did a lot in his first couple of years, when they got
and it can feel definitely Rayner, that is, but they've still brought in the talent like Neal from elsewhere. They've McCluggage, and that's it. That's it. And you guys did everything you could to try to do that. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out. But then they still managed, like say, the Lions, because they did have all that talent leave at that point. You had Hugos and Doherty's, Pollocks all leave. Did it get them some extra picks back? And that's where McCluggage and Suitcase and Berry, those young mids start coming in, and they could develop them together. And now your Danahers and Neils and that are the real cherries on the top to add to what they already had in the talent. And I think you just sort of see that. I think when you're first starting off, like pretty well Adelaide's done at the moment, gone really hard, through the draft. And that's where your Thorpes and your Berries and those guys are starting to come through, Rochelle's and stuff. And now it's starting to go, okay, we can trade out and get Rankin. We can probably go out and trade out and get something else and sort of build your list from there. So, it's not all draft like I guess Carlton tried to do for so long, and because you're still going to have senior guys around it. But definitely to get those A graders in, much easier to get them, picks 1, 2, and 3. When if it really bottoming out.
Brady Rawlings, our list manager's kind of flagged now. The club kind of thinks that we've got enough talent across the board. We're going to start using, when we've managed the salary cap well enough, that we can start, looking at actually bringing in some good mature age talent as well. So we'll see what happens, what comes kind of out of this year's trade period. See if there's someone that we're looking at, or a couple of people potentially that we're looking at as well. We do have a fairly good draft hand, and you've talked about Harley Reid. There's probably a few others who fit the bill, but I think a lot of it is really dependent on what our mix is looking like and who we think's good and who we think's not so good. But I don't see, us offloading 8 or so players again like we've done in the last few years. I just don't, there's a couple of guys I think who are on the cusp and things like that. But, we've doubled up and brought in guys like Liam Shields, who I think's still got a couple of years left in the body, depending on what happens. So we got to free up a space for him because he was SSP. Long-term injury brought him in. So, that's one spot taken up by somebody. I think there's a couple of others who might be on the cusp, but that's probably about it. So,
yeah.
Just watching that, Lloyd Meek, I think should probably tell us he could take this out, and that was really good. Takes the bounce up the wing. Tried to shrug off Darcy Moore, not the easiest thing to do.
Yeah,
but definitely seems in their ruck. It seems Reeves has been more their go-to guy, and it's Meek starting up forward.
Yeah, which I think was kind of penciled in. I know a lot of people were like, "Oh yeah, let's go get Meek," chuck him in my ruck line in Supercoach, and it's like, I don't think Hawthorn are going to run that way. I think they've got a couple of players who are okay, but I think Gunston going and Lewis maybe not being as strong, and a couple of the other guys have really forced them to do the double ruck model. I think every club's kind of doing double ruck model at the moment. So, how do you put the 211 centimeter guy not as your number one, and then the other player is your number two, when the number two guy was number two behind Darcy anyway. So
yeah, for sure.
You rarely go from being a number two to being a number one if you're used to playing like kind of ruck forward position.
That gone through. Is that Newcomb?
Yeah, Newcomb's.
I've seen him pop up in a couple of teams now.
Yeah,
what's that? 478.
Yeah, he's a weird spot. I don't think he's going to be good enough to actually, he's not going to make you enough money, and I don't think he'll be a keeper. So
no,
maybe
I think
mid 550s, and then
I think he could suck a lot of people in if he has a big game here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Dacos has been really slow. For someone who basically has been, a much talked about player. Almost, I think he's up.
No, it was Connor McDonald that kicked the goal.
I think he's up to 60% ownership at the moment. Only 4 touches, so it's not great.
Yeah, no, as I said, McInnes is wearing him and that. So that's gonna be interesting because, if Dacos has a real chance of being tagged, that's got to come into your thinking. Yeah, Connor McDonald, what's he this year? He's 279. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's a weird position. Points wise to be in. There's a few guys around that mark, and it's like, well, do you pick him or do you pick Callahan, or do you go a little bit more expensive and go a Hopper or like a Flanders type as well? This game definitely is looking good for them, but it's like they're going to have the games where they just get absolutely slaughtered through the middle.
The interesting one here is Sicily's getting nowhere near it. Just to kind of on that.
He's had a couple of shanks,
yeah,
but definitely, yeah. They're Hawks, man. They're an interesting team. Sam Mitchell's really trying to run the game how he wants, and like you're saying, he's not getting as much. I think a lot of people have flagged him as being the guy who, at that 600K mark, is one of the ones who really will drop down in price early, or will drop down in price at some point compared to maybe like a Doherty getting majority mid-time. So even though, you look at Zeeble a couple of years ago and it's like, well, the ball's in the back line a lot. I just think Sicily's kind of not going to get that same role. Well,
I think he's still. I just actually took him second round in the draft because I was like, I can see a lot of ball being down there, and I think he's going to have some massive games in that. But I could definitely see him putting the potential, putting a couple of like poorer games and stuff as well. Yeah. There's no problems there, but I actually do think he could be the number one defender this year, Sicily. And that I think as the season goes on, I think Hawthorn are going to get worse and worse.
Yeah.
And I just think they'll, as you said, Sam Mitchell will have his game plan earlier on. and that. But when they start getting some floggings, they might slow it down a bit, and Sicily might be actually on the end of a lot of chipping ball. Let's just make sure we're not getting belted by too much here. Let's not kill the confidence of some of these guys as much on that. So yeah, I think he's priced about where he's at. It's just a question of early in the year, does he drop 50K and then it climbs back up? That's kind of why sitting on it at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good mark. Was it Lloyd Meek again?
It's interesting. Kind of, I think we see it a little bit with Gold Coast as well. These teams who constantly keep losing good, mature age talent. And it's like eventually the legs just kind of get run off them. They get an injury or so, and then it's real, time's up for a lot of these teams. You hate being the team that gets flogged. Obviously, being a North supporter, I kind of know what it's like, but it's a real tough kind of position to be in.
The Hawks are back in this. I won't point behind them. Pies had a real fast start.
Right. They're doing all right.
There's Tommy Mitchell handballing the ball back 20 meters.
Yeah. As long as he gets the possessions.
Dacos
is still getting tagged to nothing, which I think, I don't know if, there was talk about him today. Well, that was an almost really good mark from Frost. There's some talk about him today being like, moving from midfield back to half back, like being named in this game. And is he going to be versatile? Do you think he's going to play mid? Do you think he's going to play kind of a hybrid type role? What's kind of your predictions for Dacos this year?
I was actually thinking he probably gets a lot more midfield time. Pendles, Crisp are the ones that move back a half back.
Yeah.
But that's the worry. We just keep going through over who do you tag at Collingwood? Like, who cares? Like, Mitchell, you can't sit and say he's not damaging getting 40 touches, but you're not going to tag Mitchell at that. That's not going to happen. Taylor Adams, again, like he's not on the park enough anyway, and that, but I don't think you tag him. So really, it's more if the goalie was spending time in the midfield, which you probably don't have to as much, like he's so dynamic in that forward line, or it's a Dacos type because Dacos can run and carry with the ball. So I think if you've got the choice to tag somebody, you're going Dacos. So it'll just be a case of he's going to have to work through it. And if he is getting tagged, do they then make sure they, move him down the, put him back to half back, and hopefully the tagger doesn't follow him down there. But it's just, it's just part of his learning, and that he's just going to work through it and that. And, I guess he's a really good runner, so he's just going to have the time to have to burn the tagger and stuff. And maybe it might be a case that Dacos just starts slow in first halves until he can sort of use his running capacity to kind of burn out the tagger as the game goes on. Or if the second half and it's, the opposition has to win, sometimes they release the tagger anyway. So it could be a case where Dacos, we might see him on 20, 25 points come half time, and he might have 50, 60 points second halves. That's a possibility. Like he's just finally got a kick then. So,
reminds me a bit of Jordan Dawson, how he used to be like, get 30-point or 40-point half times, and you're like, non-owners, we're happy. Comes out and gets like a 70-point second half. I hate these players. I think the problem with Dacos is he's shown that he's susceptible to the tag, which makes him going to be getting the tag again. Like you say, a lot of these mature ages, they'll just push it off. But if he's going to be such a high accumulator type player, I think teams are really going to focus on him. I know St Kilda are looking to do a bit of a tag. Potentially North Melbourne have a run with player. And then obviously Hawthorn are doing it as well. West Coast do quite well in that position. So, it's really interesting stuff at the moment, kind of what's happening and then going from there.
Yep, for sure. My boy Dylan.
It will be someone who can play like a mid-forward role, because then you can tag the opposition half-back flankers, I think.
Yeah, of course. My boy Dylan Moore has already had it 8 times.
Yeah,
good. If you're watching this, Benny boy, just send me the $50 now, boy.
He had a go at us on Twitter the other day. Go at us on YouTube chat as well. It's just like, those bets, man. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work. So really interesting. Hawthorn's kind of in. Obviously, it's first quarter, but Yeah, definitely.
Actually, I can't say too much. I think Wingard's on 35. He's just been sitting out there in the wing, taking marks at will and that.
That's another goal. Number 13. Oh, Dylan Moore just kicked a
goal.
My
boy, Dylan Moore. Yeah.
Swizz! Sorry for arriving late, mate. Thanks for coming
right, mate.
on.
How are you?
Good. Rushed to get in from work. My God, the traffic, peak hour traffic sucks, but
look,
who
wants to deal
it's
with
good
that?
to watch some footy. Can't deny it.
How good. Proper footy's back, not these bloody match sims from last week.
Yeah.
I was just saying, my boy Dylan Moore just goes bang.
Oh, where's Ben? Where's Benny boy? Hope he's ducking somewhere under a table. He doesn't want to see more of this, I'm sure. He's playing more forward though, yeah. He's still stuck in the forward line, I assume.
He's had it 9 times and kicked a goal.
Oh, holy smokes! Absolutely. This guy is well and truly someone that you got to be considering then.
Absolutely, 244 meters gained as it is. Absolutely killing it, Dylan.
Yeah, it's an interesting pick. I don't think I've seen a single team that started Dylan Moore this year. We did all our team reviews and things like that. A lot of people picking kind of the 4 guys who are touted for midfield. But if DPP wasn't a thing, I think I would be more convinced to actually pick him. But I think he's the one that falls off a little bit when your DPP midfielders come in.
Yeah.
Is that kind of fair to say?
100% is correct. And that's we all were loving the fact that these dual position players come in, but I nearly think it's worse for the game because, it stops us from picking some of these blokes now.
I like the versatility, man.
Yeah, I do like that too.
The idea of, defender rookies are really good this year, so let's just go and stack the forward line again. And there'll be no repercussions for it, like it was a couple of years ago. A lot of people were running 6 like mature-aged guys who are almost premiums in that forward line. And it's just teams get too much alike, and there's no punishment and things like that.
Yeah, that's different fair. Teams, so. Yeah, I guess it goes both sides, goes both ways.
Yeah, because I was talking with Big J the other day actually, because after seeing all those inter-clubs, the Pracky games last week, I'm like, I don't know. Do I start 4 primos? Because we're already gonna look by the looks of things. Petrarca could get DPP. Gorn could get DPP. That's just right off the St Kilda versus Melbourne game, and you've already got 2 top tier caliber players who could get DPP forward status come round 6. It's like, oh boy, do I want to load up on my forward line if I'm going to be able to get these guys?
I'm 6 deep at the moment in my forward line, but one of them is Jack Zeeble, so he's not going to be there for too long.
No, he's a money maker. Ooh, was that Nakos? No, big fly from someone there.
So a big one from the Carlton team sheet just dropped, and Sincotta's playing halfback, and Cowan's on the bench.
Ooh,
so it's going to be interesting. But I think speaking to people today, he's a much better player and kind of been in the Blues VFL program, kind of knows the position. 26-year-old gun, it's hard to pass him up versus an 18-year-old kid, right? Especially when you want to try and contend. It's good for Supercoach though, because he's 102K.
K, who I don't actually think's in my side at the moment. So excellent, because I was trying to balance it around. So beautiful, the man can come in, because I was kind of worried because I looked at him and was like, you only got the 8 touches last week. Well, he's an easier player to come in than it is the other way around. That's a high scoring first quarter. 5 straight 6.
I was about to say, very accurate as well.
What's your thoughts on Tom Cole, Swizz, as a pick? Coming in at 180K is named.
Yeah, that's a great
named in the defense.
That is, and to be fair, I haven't thought that much about him. I've been trying to avoid those really awkward prices, like those premiums, so your Sheezels and Coles, anything over, even like Gimby, just because I think he's an absolute jet at 170, but I haven't really wanted to go over about 170 for these rookies unless and I know Cole's not a rookie and that it's a bit of a different story there. But unless I'm 100% all over their job security and think that they're going to definitely be giving me 60s, I've sort of haven't been looking at them as closely as probably I should have been. But just the whole price of that worries me, because especially in defense, because I thought we've had some good options. Now, Wendell's probably dropped off there, but we still looks like we're still going to have McKenna, Wilmot, Constable, Sincotta, possibly still Chesser. So there is still enough floating. So there's still enough floating around at the moment going, do I really need to spend up for 180K guy when there's guys sitting there at 160 and below?
Yeah.
Do
you take more stock into the fact, though, that he is like a 25-year-old player who won't get rested, though?
I do.
Of course.
But I'd have to see, again, it's probably one to just watch this week to go, okay, I'm assured that he looks like he's got a good role settled down in there. I'm worried about which way West Coast kind of goes, because we talk about, okay, yes, his age and it's a bit more senior experience than that, but are they backing these senior guys in, or are they finally going with these kids? Because West Coast, I think, even if they play all the senior guys, they're not that great. So how many of these kids do they need to play and start investing time in? And how and which of the senior players that get pushed out because of that? As he's gone walking, so he can't give me an answer on that.
That's Big J is prone. Big J is prone to just go on a walk, stretch the legs a little bit.
Asks an important question there, and it's like, no, that's all right. I'm not going to get the answer I'm looking for. So,
that's I know a lot of people played. What was his face from Richmond? Start with G. Gibcus. Yeah, a lot of people had
Gibcus. Yeah.
So maybe someone, like, if something doesn't come in, maybe we can do that. But I kind of agree with you. If we didn't have the cheaper options.
What's Cole's best season? He went 69 once. I think everything else is around the 57 mark.
Yeah.
That does worry me a bit too, because like if he'd consistently gone back and you go, okay, this guy's a 65 guy, then you go, okay, that's 32 over his break even, a little bit more confidence in his scoring too. But it's not like he has a history of some of these guys that, have been out of the game for a year, come back and go, okay, there's obviously a reason why he's 182K, because he's never been a real proven scorer. And then if I'm not 100% sure still on the job security, if they are going to put time into the kids, it's different. If West Coast were, they finished not far out of the 8 last year, they're trying to rebound. Cole comes back into that lineup as they're trying to push back for a top 8. It's a whole different conversation we're having. It's like, okay, they're feeding him back there, maybe in the back pocket, whatever. And you're going, okay, there's a guy who's going to play, as long as he's fit, playing his 22 games, or, whatever I need him to play to make cash, he's going to go, he's only going to go 60, but I've got confidence of him being there. Versus now it's, okay, how do they fit in Chesser, Hewitt, Gimby? Which other kids are they fitting in? Noah Long. How many of these kids can they play too? The balance of that. Do West Coast see themselves as, we actually only just had a bad year. No, we're going to back all these senior guys in. Or do they realize and go, actually, no, we do need to put a lot more kids in. So I've got questions with their whole list as well. I had them tipped for bottom 6 last year, even if they were all fit and firing. And I actually didn't think, they're that great. And not a lot's changed this year. Like, they should be playing more kids. So their best player is Nata Nui.
Who did they even after they beat Adelaide?
They beat Collingwood.
Who did they play in the intra club? They played.
Last week they played Port.
Yeah.
I thought they were talking about the 2 wins or whatever they had last year, but they looked all right against Port, but Port did have a few players out. And then match sim. How much do we really read into results last week for match sim?
Very, very true.
A quick question for you, Swizz.
Yeah.
Warpool. There are some people I'm still seeing that are on the Warpool train. I don't quite understand what they're hoping to see or what they are seeing. Why they're committing to this guy? I don't know. Can you somehow predict what they're thinking?
I think that it's all on this. It becomes because he like that nickname. The Warpedo and that a cult figure.
Yeah,
Cult figures just have that resonate better with players than that. Where, for example, we had this debate about Horn Francis through the week with a couple of people. He could have a brilliant role this year. Looks like he's actually probably got a role, but there's so many question marks about him because the perception is the guy's a shit bloke. He's bloody, another Kane Corns and stuff like that, or mama's boy, whatever term you want to use. But then for a lot of people, it's like, well, I've crossed him off my list because that's the perception we have of him. Where Warple, because of just the way people looked at him, it's like, oh yeah, Warpedo, oh yeah, if he gets back in that midfield, he showed it that 1 year. How can we not pick him? Where I think people get too much in this sort of hype, going, okay, is this guy actually any good? Like my mate Grimmer and I sat there and watched him in a couple of games over the last couple of years, and we turn to each other and go, "This guy, it's all hype. Like I don't think there's a lot of substance to his actual gameplay and that." And there's plenty of other options now that've gone past him. Yeah, he started this game fairly solid. He's got the 9 touches and looking pretty good, but you got like Cam McKenzie out there, another young player. He's looking all right. And now they've got Newcomb and Ward, and they've added Amon, and you've got Dylan Moore running through there. They do have some, they're young, but they've got options there coming through. So it's hard for me to sit there and go, yeah, Warple's the guy that they're going to back in. Hey, if he goes out and has a big game today, it's not going to, change my mind, but it might sell even more people. But I think then that false hope. Like there's always players that do well in these preseason games because that, as much as the players are trying, you're not going 100%. You might be going 80%. Not, you might have a couple of younger players going a bit harder, but you're not going to see Pendles and Dangers and all those guys putting their body on the line like their life means to it and that. So Warple then gets a game which is worth 4 points. Round 1, and now you're playing against guys who are playing like that it's gone up a notch. I think the speed goes up in those games, just the intensity, and that's where he gets found out.
I agree. And just a quick one. I noticed that was a Dacos kick in on the other side. He kicked it in, and then he ran all the way along the boundary line to get to the feet of where Darcy Moore ended up kicking the ball towards Cox. So he is working really hard, really demanding the ball. All right, he might not get all the touches, but what you're looking for in these games, I just want to remind the viewers, the role and how they're looking like in terms of what you can predict from their Supercoach scoring this year. So he had a kick in, so he's not going to be full-time mid.
We had a chat about this before and said the problem is Hawthorn are tagging this game. McGuinness has gone straight to Dacos. Now, they've had to put him back there, get his kick out and stuff to release him from that tag. Who else do you tag from Collingwood outside of Dacos?
It's a good question. Will be whoever they've got like in the middle, I suppose. That's really carving them up. But there really isn't anybody. I mean, you can't really tag Tom Mitchell. Pendles is class.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Who's the one that's going to kill you with foot speed, really good efficiency, kicking the ball, meters gained, all that sort of stuff. And I feel like it's Dacos even in his second year. So Hawthorn have already gone, okay, McGuinness, ball, first bounce, clamp on him. And then they've had to, for most of that quarter, he couldn't get near it. And then, they've freed him up to put him back in that back line. But is this a thing that we're going to see early on? Where teams are going to send it to Dacos, and then until he works out how to use his speed to burn the tag throughout the game, or develop his body as well, could we actually see some regression here from him until he and no different like Walsh went through it, and all these young stars have to find at some point. We even talked about Parrish, the first time he started getting tagged.
it's a new concept for some of these players who, for all of their under 18s and juniors, ran around and could do whatever they want, never get any of the attention, and then finally one day, oh, hang on, this guy's actually all they're going to do is follow me around. It's a different concept.
Yeah, 100%. I talking about it like we were saying before, though. I think that halfback position is so strong. I mean, we just saw the ball just now going from the back line to the forward line in like 4 kicks. So kind of negating that distributor, stopping them from having to set up or even just making them uncomfortable on field. I think it kind of pays dividends quite a lot.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I was just reading something somebody sent me there. It goes, apparently Sam Mitchell on tagging Dacos. I think he better get used to it. He's too good of a player just to let run around.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Who else do you play though in that position? Do you pay up for 2 600K players then? Maybe go Dawson Doherty and then just run a yo and say, well, I've locked in 2 of the top 4 or 5, so that's good enough for me, and then upgrade as you go.
That's what we've got at the that's what I've got at the moment. So I know people want that cheaper option and looking at either Young, Ridley, like I don't mind Ed Richards as well. So there's some options there, but there's a part of me that thinks there's 5 big dogs. Do I just pay up for the 2 of them? And I've got a big love affair for Dawson. So he's one of them. It's just which one I want to pair with him, and just know, okay, I've got 2 of them. And then hopefully, it's probably easy to pick up a couple of these other guys who are around that 500 mark. Hopefully they haven't burnt me too much with price. And come upgrade season around 6, 7, 8, I'll just jump on a couple of them then, whichever the best ones are.
I guess if Jones and Bose, those kind of players come into it a bit more, it will be a lot easier to actually make that happen because you're not hurting too much on value. You don't want to pick 2 600K guys, and then 3 guys at 180.
Yeah, for sure. But then again, I've always said, the rookies are the ones that set our team. So, it looks like Sincotter's going to start. I've got confidence in McKenna now, Wilmot and that. But for whatever reason, if these guys don't line up round 1, then, that completely changes.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I said it before, Joe, before you were on going, you can have, say it's, let's say it's Sinclair, Sicily, and Gimby, or you can have Ridley, Young, Dacos. I think there's about a 50K, 70K difference, something like that. So it's practically the same in your cost. So if that looks the better option to go the 2 primos and then the rookie. But if Gimby doesn't line up round 1, all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, I don't have one of these rookies and that, or I don't have enough rookies to fill. Do I have to sit there and go, okay, no, I have to fill my team with these 500K options? So there's plenty that comes into our decisions there, and it's all based around how many rookies we have.
I just think that there are so many defensive rookies though that you're bound to have one of them play. That's the thing. Like even like McVee, that Melbourne one, he looked really good. I liked what I saw from him. He didn't get a lot of the ball, but I thought what I found really interesting was he took some intercept marks, and then even though he wasn't the one taking the kick-ins, there were a few times where May just straight away, when he took the kick-in, kicked it straight to McVee. So it was like, no hesitation, I'm passing you the ball. So, if you're not taking the kick-in, I guess the next best option is the one receiving the kick-in, right? Then bomb it long, effective kick.
I did. Again, didn't mind him, and hopefully get a better look at him this week as well. So there's, I think there's enough options that makes me feel like guns and rookies in the defense at least is a solid option with Yo there. It's most likely for people D3.
Yes. I'm not a big fan of people going Yo at D1.
I have seen.
Gives me a heart attack, man. I get nervous.
The D2 doesn't worry me as much if it was, say, Bose D3 and maybe Caulfield D4, if you were confident on them playing. But now that looks like Caulfield definitely isn't playing, and then Bose has got the half-forward flank role. It's a bit of a different story. But that's what I didn't mind it. But the D1, that's like me with Radicalia at R2, just giving people heart attacks.
Yeah, no thanks.
Better than McAndrew at R2.
If we had enough options, it'd be okay. Bobby Hill's doing very well, by the way.
He is. There's a draft smoky for people who play draft.
Yeah. He's not doing that well on the score sheet, Supercoach or fantasy-wise, but he's doing very, very well.
No, I was very bullish. Like, I was actually really cut. Like, when the news came out that he wanted to come to Essendon, I'm like, oh, yes, please. This guy's really good. And then when he ended up going to Collingwood, my heart sank because I freaking hate Collingwood. And they just added an amazing player, young player to their list. I was like, no, I wanted them to have Ginnivan instead.
Their ins have just made their forward line so much more dangerous because last year I felt like if it's like Myercheck didn't have a great season as he's just put one into the woodwork. But now that you add McStay in there, so that's two tall options and that. Myercheck's not your normal big, bustling full forward. So you get McStay down there with Myercheck, and then it looks like they're playing Darcy Cameron as that, ruck option there. But then you put Bobby Hill at the feet, and because you've got Tom Mitchell on the side, it's allowing Decoe to stay more in the 50. Their forward line's actually got some really good avenues to it. And even Lipinski playing, I think Lipinski might have just put another one through.
He did, yeah.
So just another option there that starts up in the half forward line for them. So I think they've actually got some real dangerous options in that forward line.
Yeah, I think Decoe spending a little bit more time around the middle type area has allowed Lipinski to do that. And I think with them looking at playing more of a two-ruck style, they might go Myercheck, Darcy Cameron. Not Myercheck, Mason Cox, Cameron, one of those guys in the forward line. You look at Lipinski's in there. You look at all these other players. My brain's gone to mush. You look at kind of those players. It kind of puts the two power forwards. So it distributes them a little bit more than I think we saw last year. Because Lipinski was there and he was on fire for the first 8 or so weeks and then kind of really fell off by the end of it. I think if he's not relied on as much, it's going to make the team a lot better.
Another Sicily kick in for those.
Yeah, he's been doing all right. But, yeah.
I hope we're just talking about him, that he's in my team at the moment. I just took him round 2 in a draft. So
nice.
I've got a lot of. I'm sweating big on Sysdog at the moment. So
the Hawks are going to get cremated every week. He's going to get so much ball back there and so many kick-ins. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, well, that's probably that's hurt him at the moment because just probably a bit the pace of the game and that. I think you're not going to see this high-scoring sort of game come. Regular season that there is a little bit of bruise-free footy happening. And we've said about that, players probably, especially the senior guys, mentally it's 80% for them and that running the legs. They're not diving for balls, which, okay, there's some contests happening in that, but yeah, it does feel like, how often do we see this where the score is 54-38 in, what are we not even halfway through the second quarter yet? Like this is, it's a bit abnormal at the moment.
I'm sort of not. I don't know. I think he's still going to score well, but I think the way he scores is going to be different. I don't think there's going to be a lot of intercept marking, simply because the ball's going to be just waltzed out of the middle. So there's going to be a lot of leading targets in the forward line. I think he's going to struggle to get intercept marks. I suppose the way he will probably get most of his scoring this year might be through just simply being involved in the play with them sharing the ball around in the back line, obviously from his kick-ins. But I can't see a lot of intercept marks coming, especially as the year progresses and their young midfield gets, really tired and just completely bottoms out. It's going to be really ugly to watch. He's going to have a lot of times where he's just one-on-one isolated trying to defend somebody.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Cam McKenzie's looked right so far.
Yeah. Just again, not loving the price.
Yeah. Talking nonsense about Warple, the guy's had 13 touches and set up a couple of goals.
I know.
Yeah. It happens though. Hawthorn, I guess we'll talk about it again because it's the Hawthorn game, but they're really hard to judge. Because Mitchell's changing so much in that side. Yeah. Hill
Like,
and
it's just gonna-
Elliott up forward for the Pies is nasty though. Good luck.
Oh,
Good
Elliott
luck.
coming back last year was huge.
Actually take them on.
Like when Elliott got healthy last year, you could tell automatically this guy is so talented. Really, like he's such an impressive player. Him being injured for so long has been a major issue for Collingwood. When he was healthy last year, like you could see just how much of a difference he made to the side. And now you're adding also with him Bobby Hill. It's just like, God damn, these two small forwards are insane. And then you've got the other players, the other mids that can push forward. Like we've mentioned Lipinski already. He can push forward. He can kick a goal. You got the Dacosses. They can kick goals. Honestly, like there's so many options that they've got moving forward. It's quite ridiculous, and it's very annoying.
How the good teams play, right? If you've got one or two options, people can negate you. But if you've got people marking their tools, the smalls do well. Same vice versa. If the forward line's locked in, then you go and smash it with a lot of midfielders who can kick goals, that kind of thing. So, yeah. I think Mason Cox has shied away a little bit from taking the ruck duties. I'm not sure what's happening. I haven't seen much of him as much. 50% time on the bench isn't great. So I'm not sure what's up with that.
But he's had 14 hitouts. So
yeah,
where Darcy Cameron just the 7. But there definitely seems to be a lot of rotation happening there with the big guys. So he's the one where I think 3/4 time, if they haven't had an injury, he gets subbed. But that still doesn't make me want to now pick Darcy Cameron if he's starting in the midfield.
No, 100%.
Oh, and is Adams playing a lot more forward this game?
Yep.
Yep.
That's why he's kicked. Yep. That's why he's kicked 2 goals.
Oof. Lipinski. He was an interesting one last year. Sicily received the kick in this time. Yeah, Newcomb is insane though. How good is Newcomb, man? I feel sorry for him. He's gonna have a lot of games where he's just gonna be shouldering the load by himself and just be looking around to his teammates like, "Come with me, come on," but they just won't be able to.
I like that. If they're not taking the kick in, let them receive the kick in, even better.
Exactly.
So now look at Sicily started growing. Like he only had the 11 DT to quarter time, but he's already had 23 this quarter.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's worked in. He's had the 9 touches, 4 marks. It's starting to happen for him.
He could start there were games where he literally started in the negatives because he started with 3s against, and then he'll look, oh no, Sicily's doing bad, and then you'll find by half time the guy's already on 55 or something. Like
I was frustrated because I didn't own him all last year. This is the only one that I really got wrong, and it just hurt me week and week because there were some weeks I was like, you beauty, here we go, finally, and then it's like, how does this prick keep scoring 120? And I think that's why I'm so big on him this year because it's just the FOMO last year.
Intercepts giving you like 8 points each, right?
As we said, he's going to see so much ball.
Oh, another goal coming up, lining up for goal for our good friend Dylan Moore. He wants more. He wants more.
Tag
Benny boy. Run away, Benny boy. You're going to lose this.
He might be actually tuned in. Benny boy might be tuned into this.
Oh, if he's on,
he won't be now. Oh, I'm going to message him anyway.
Against Collingwood. I mean, Collingwood, defensively, they're pretty good. They're pretty strong. So for him to now have, 3 goals to his name or before half-time is really impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Moore's got to be on quite a lot of scores. What's that? 13 touches, 3 goals. Oh, boy.
Yeah. Unreal. 330 meters gained.
It's not bad.
You'd expect him to get more midfield minutes as the season progresses, wouldn't you? Like as the young Hawthorn midfield brigade tires out, like we've seen so much with all of these other young teams, you'd expect him to get more midfield minutes, right?
Yep.
So
Definitely.
this is his flaw. This is kind of like his flaw. This is the worst role that he's going to play all year, being in the forward line. So this is you can consider this to be like the base of what he's going to have, and then as the season progresses, his role should get better as he gets more and more midfield time. So there's going to be improvement throughout the course of the year. The only question is, will that improvement be enough for him to match it with the big guys who will get DPP later in the season?
Look, if he was sub 500, I think I would be a lot more inclined to pick him. But at that price, man, like it's just too much. What's your thoughts on Tom Mitchell, Swizz? Has he kind of shown you enough to be in your team, or are you kind of weighing off him now?
He wasn't. I had to consider him at that, but he was probably he was further down the ranks of Tom Green anyway. But he was, I guess, he was sort of in that mix of second and third with Anderson and LDU. But watching LDU last week and then watching Mitchell, if Mitchell's not playing, full-time midfield, now he has been around the ball and stuff like that, but because Collingwood have got so many other options to run through there, he's not. I think we probably thought he's going there. That's his spot. He's playing non-stop midfield. He's not going to have as much midfield time as we want. And just because the way Collingwood play, we talk about that Richmond game plan, move the ball forward, and that it's not set up for him perfect. He's going to help Collingwood in their stoppages. And I think he's obviously a very good footballer, but I don't know. I don't actually think he's that sold of a Supercoach option. What I've seen.
Yeah, and then you got the comments from Pendles. This is going to be a different Mitchell, not one who's going to get 40 disposals. Like, the problem is the Mitchell that scores good Supercoach points is the one with 40 disposals. Yeah. We need him to get the 40 disposals. So, it was quick to be taken off my list as well.
Yeah, I think Collingwood, it's maybe a little bit of this guy gets 50 touches every time he plays us too. Let's stop him doing that by recruiting him.
Exactly. Abs had to get the fisherman to go out and pull the shark out of the water to get the keys back.
What do you mean draft? As people were sending me.
So this is a Meek centre bounce attendance now. It's been mostly Reeves so far this game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, majority. I think Reeves is actually on the bench, maybe, or rotating somewhere. But yeah, no, it's Meek and Reeves. We were just talking about him before, being like, "Hey, I don't think you can pick either." The ruck line is definitely the hardest position to pick, as Warple just gets a clearance from the centre bounce and then does some good stuff. But yeah, it's really going to be interesting to see what happens.
Gee, Warple's getting his hand on it quite a bit.
After we said that, we're like, false sense of security. It's
honestly, like he touched the ball 3 times in that passenger play, and they're all kicks. He knows what he's doing.
Suck everyone in.
Exactly. Keep it going, my boy. Keep it going.
The only saving grace I have about Warple is the fact that
here he is again.
You just should have got a free kick.
No.
The saving grace I have about him is that there's a lot of other players around that mark. So as long as you can pick him and then come round 3, you're in the capacity to offload him to whichever one's going to make the most money. I don't really see that much of a bad option with it. It's going to hurt your scoring and things like that for a couple of weeks potentially, but getting like a 50 instead of a 70 isn't the worst thing in the world, right?
Yeah, like he could do pretty well. I just think Hawthorn actually, for a team we're talking about being a low team on the ladder. And my prediction for the Spoon, I think they've got quite a few options run through there. They just don't have the quality options that other teams do.
Yeah,
but they do have quite a few that can run through with, mix it up and stuff. So, yeah, just because Warple's doing well this game, Newcomb could be back on fire like he was last week, and that we haven't really seen Ward that much. And that's like, you still got your Will Days who like, who else? Connor McDonald quickly went through there. McGuinness was tagging through there. So the Connor Nash can also. So that there are some names there that they can definitely run through that midfield. And I think Sam Mitchell, it might be a case of it's a bit of set and forget here. He's going to give them all opportunities at different points throughout the game or throughout the season.
A lot of similar types, though, aren't there?
That's the problem.
Similar types.
I think because what Warple, I think, is out of contract this year. I think Mitchell will, he'll give them all opportunities at different times to give them to see what his best mix is going forward. But this is just I think after last year, they did really well, but this is just more of a trial and error season for Hawthorn. They've got nothing to lose. Just, pump games into the kids.
Oh, Dacos seemed to have hurt his hand or wrist there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, he pushed Dylan Moore into the wall, and I think he banged it on the way in.
Yeah. Oh, he's tripped in the so he's studs have slipped on that cement area. Yeah, and his hands definitely landed on the electronic sign.
Lipinski was a fantastic pickup for the Pies, man.
For bargain. For nothing.
How good would Lipinski be now that Dunkley's left?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Exactly. Bloody Bevo, man, honestly.
And the funny thing is, they knew Dunkley wanted out 2 years ago and doing everything to keep him. They could have moved him on knowing that they have Lipinski there, and then they end up still having, and now they've got neither. Bevo, classic Bevo.
Dogs are slowly imploding. They feel a bit like the Brisbane Lions women's team, how they just start developing all this talent. And slowly, like players keep leaving.
They are, man. I don't know. I just there's something about Bevo. Ooh, great contested pack, Mark Kazitsky. That was wonderful.
Hawks
could win it. Yeah, but as I was saying, like, my God, Bevo is such a, I don't know. I feel like this guy has underachieved with the list that he's got so far, to be honest.
I had them as my flag winners last year. And I still think, I look at their list and I'm like, how can they not challenge for it again this year? And there's a part of me thinks they could also miss the 8.
I think that the ruck line is a really big problem for them. I don't think a lot of people really realise how vital kind of winning that position was. And when English started getting injured and things like that, it really kind of sent them on downward spiral because they just didn't have anyone else.
Yeah, I should know this.
Geelong, you can't say Geelong have got the best ruck line.
Yeah, but they've got coverage if like Stanley or Blitzarves or someone gets injured.
Yeah, but
like,
Stanley's
Jordan Sweet.
Stanley's a really good defensive ruckman. Like, I think he's underrated how defensively good he is. He's not like all the other ruckmen that we love on Supercoach because he scores. They all score so well. But as a guy to shut down and play, really hard to play against. I think he definitely does his job.
When you got a midfield like the Bulldogs, though, you got a midfield that can shark taps, that can win contested ball, that can burst out from a stoppage. Like, I don't know. I feel like for them, they shouldn't need a dominant ruckman as much as any other team.
I was just like, Team English out of contract. Was it next year?
Yeah. Not this year. Yeah.
No, definitely not this year, but next year it is. It's an interesting one.
Get North Melbourne to throw some money at him.
Well, he's a Western Australian, isn't he?
Oh, that'd be cool. Nick Nat's on his last legs anyway, so might as well.
Yeah. Well, that's just what I'm thinking. They'll have plenty of money to splash around.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you think Richmond's going to go this year, Swizz? What's your prediction?
I think probably 4 to 6.
Yeah.
I'm about to say top 6, got to be.
I love it when people don't pick us to make it play out. Okay, yeah, I know we lost, like the North game last year and stuff like that. But how many games? We're the anti-Collingwood last year. Like, how many close games did we lose? Like, as much as everyone's like, "Oh, Collingwood was so good because they won all those games." There's element of luck to win as many of those close games as you do. Where at the same time with Richmond, there's an element of bad luck to lose that many close games. So I think we had North, the Gold Coast one after the siren. Freo was the draw. Geelong was in with minutes. Even there was one or two games I think I think the Blues game round one, we were leading at 3/4 time and leading sort of halfway through that last quarter too. I think Blues kicked maybe the last 4 or something. But yeah, they were in the Swans game too. That was the one where was that the one where they kicked the ball into the crowd? That was last year too, wasn't it? When Warner, I think,
that should have been a 50. That should have been 50.
So there's another one. Like, so there's 6 games there where we've lost by like a kick or under, and against good teams, like, especially Geelong and Sydney. So it does make me think and go, okay, our biggest issue last year, outside a few injuries, was Taranto and Hopper not having that sort of quality midfield. Like, we were relying on Prestia, who, if he gets through 12 games a season, it's a good year. And now we've fixed that issue. So why wouldn't we be better? That's the theory on it anyway. It probably, we don't now need to have to rely on still Dusty and Koch, and like Koch and Dusty in that North practice match the other day just kind of took the mickey but he had like 3 touches and kicked a couple and just like, you wouldn't want to be lining up as a defender against our forward line this year.
No, you wouldn't. It's weird. I think this is the first time ever in a really long time that your midfield is your real strong suit this year. Normally, it's like your back line's always been spearheaded with like Rance and Grimes and Hooley. It was a stacked back line. I thought Hooley should have won the Norm Smith in that first one instead of Dusty. Your forward line, been massive with obviously Rewalt and Lynch, but Rewalt's probably on his last year now. Like, you'd probably have to say that your mids are probably the strongest line now, right?
Yeah, definitely has. Like, we're still probably we've got a bit more evenness around the ground. 100% agree. Like, won that premiership with the defense that we had. It was absolutely brilliant, and just that surge. Like, we really purposely lose the clearance just so we could surge forward from the half back line, and Young Short and Voster. There was just so many options coming from there. But now it's and then we had that, like, the mosquito fleet up in the forward line. But we've legitimately got a gun centre half forward. Nank's probably in his prime as the ruck and as the captain, and then you've got there's a midfield around them. When you're now thinking Prestia there's a lot less pressure on him doing what he has to do, and that because it's not relied on him. And we saw how much it hurt when he was out again last year in those games. I'm not too sure of our win percentage when he's in, but it's amazing. But now that he doesn't have to carry the load, and we've actually got some options around him, and we saw like Taranto could have nearly kicked 5 last week from the midfield playing that. That's right. So it's going to be really interesting to see us actually with a midfield and able to win a clearance, and then kicking down to a forward line, and to see at times that forward line. Jack, who, as you said, last year, but Jack, Lynch, Dusty, Shai Bolton, Cumberland, and then you've got, you might have one of those other smalls through there.
Mm.
Yeah, but it does fill me with a lot of hope for the season coming up, which is awesome, because the last few years have been pretty good as well. And to think that if we can keep them on the park, we can definitely challenge for another flag. It's a good thing.
That's exactly right. But your surge, that wanting to give up the clearance early on because you wanted to surge the ball, that was obviously a different era with the rules, because now obviously we got the 666. Right now, clearances are a lot more important, I think, than they've ever been. Simply because you can't set up your team now, because that's it. You have to have the 6 in the back line. You can't. It's very hard to sort of want to lose a clearance now, because all of a sudden forward pressure is becoming king. So getting an early clearance right at the bat, getting the ball high to one-on-one. Good luck defending Lynch one-on-one. He's a gun. Jack, he's still got spring in his step. He still can, read the flight of the ball and protect the landing zone really well. So, you've got a really potent mix. And now that you're going to be able to get first use on it, it's just a question really of whether or not Nankervis can not give away so many free kicks, right?
Yeah, well, that's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, well, we always say the 6-6-6 kind of changed. The rules changed because of us, because we'd practically start 8 defenders and just not start 4. Just everyone push up on that, and it didn't matter and then we just surged forward, and it was very successful. But the 6-6-6, I thought once that came in, this is really going to hurt us. But they've gone out and recruited and fixed that issue, and that's the other one up forward. They're trialing Cochin up there as a forward pocket who did a nice front and centre the other day. But it's trying to divide. Think how many other defenders. Well, it's even like you still got Geelong, who you got your Stewarts and stuff who are very good defenders anyway. But they might have to be a bit more the accountability now for a forward line like that, because like Lynch is getting number 1. You're sending probably number 2 to Dusty. Don't really want to let him running around on his, and then so all of a sudden, who's Jack and Shea getting? And then Cochin's going to get some rookie or junior defender or someone like that for a guy that's, we can argue if he's won a Brownlow or not, but a guy who's obviously been one of the best.
He hasn't. He didn't. He didn't.
But one of the better players, Drew, that's come through and stuff, who's finishing his career, just able to plotting up in the forward line. It's going to cause a few teams headaches. And I think what we're already the number 1 scoring team last year. So, and it looks like that'll improve if everybody stays fit. So, it's going to be interesting to see us play our games.
Do you think Samson Ryan plays a bit more this year? I know Coleman Jones was kind of getting trialled as that third tall before, obviously before he left.
I think he does, and that I don't think Soldo's the forward option as much as they like it. I don't think that's the way to go. I prefer seeing Bolter at the back line. That's where his best position is. So I definitely can see there'll be games where I think maybe all 3 of them play. How many games does Jack actually play this year? So I think Samson comes in. It's probably sitting there going, it's just I love Jack. Jack's he's been my favourite player at Richmond for a long time. But it's just nearly a shame Jack's retirement. He wasn't 2 years older 2 years ago, so we could have kept Joel. Because I've really been happy with his development at the Suns and that, and would have been nice to have him seeing it full forward now. It's just unfortunately opportunities, and good on him. There's no hate towards him for doing that, but it's just kind of like, okay, who's the next one? So I think they have to give Samson Ryan games.
And you let CCJ go, right, to North. So, like, you've let some tall stock go.
I didn't actually cry over CCJ as much. I don't even know where he fits in with North Melbourne. It's a case like you look at North Melbourne's options down there. So outside of, I'm trying to think
Compton,
you've obviously got young Compton in there. You've already got Cherry's more your ruck replacing Goldie. But
Larky.
Larky's the one. So you've got Larky as your number 1. Who he could be a 50-60 goal a year forward for sure. And then we're talking about a couple of these other young. Oh, that's the other one. Who they pick up in the mid-season draft 2 years ago. Who did you guys pick up, mate?
Jacob Edwards.
Yeah, Jacob Edwards. So there's another option there. It's not like you can play all of them. So I think North have quite a few tall options. And I think Coleman Jones sees him more self as a ruckman, but when you've got Tristan Cherry already there as the next in line, I don't know exactly how he fits in, because I like what I've seen of Compton so far. And there's a question there from Travis. Should I answer this? His thoughts on Bolton? Will he be playing midfield this season? No, I think he runs through. I think it's one of those cases where we've got the option, a bit like we were talking with Collingwood before, with Adams, Lipinski, Jordan De Goey, the ability to rotate them through. So Richmond starting midfield will be Prestia, Taranto, and Hopper. Jack Graham's got to obviously be an option there, or they might sometimes they throw Jack Ross. That's probably more Graham as the fourth. But then you've got your Dusty and Boltons, I think, will come in different spurts. So Bolton's so good around goal. Like it would not, I said this 2 years ago, if Bolton plays a full season just in the forward line, I could see him one day kicking 10 or 12 just in a game. He's just going to absolutely carve a game up. And be a bit like I feel like a little like Mark Lacroix or Stevie Milne, just one of those small forwards that just has like an absolute day out and kicks double figures. But I think we've got the luxury where he doesn't need to play up the ground, but it would just be, there'll be one of the rotations, be it the second or the third rotation, will go up there. So from a Supercoach option, I wouldn't be touching him.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think it's probably could Day as a D3, Will Day. He hasn't done much today, has he? Only
he's actually playing defense today.
And
this is what we're talking about. Hawthorn, similar types, which is a problem, but there's so many options. So yeah, he's rotating through the midfield, but definitely started in defense. So I would be saying no. If they'd gone with him starting midfield today and then he rotates back defense or halfback flank or something like that, that's a different story. But I don't like guys who do the other. So he might be the second or third rotation and that. But yeah, there's so many kind of similar types at Hawthorn. So that's a no for me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what's he priced at? His price is $362K. 362 divided by 5.5. He's priced at a 65. He has to go 95 for him to make 150K. Yeah.
And it's not even like he's got Yo's role in defense where, okay, he's going to take intercept marks or kick-ins or anything like that. It's a bit of a nothing pick for me.
Yeah. Wouldn't do it, Luca.
It's not even like he's got Yo's previous scoring history either.
That too.
Coming and saying, okay, well, he's actually done a similar type thing. Well, here we go. Here's one for you, Swizz.
we know my thoughts on that. I love the guy. Genuinely, I loved him last year as well. I'm all over this guy. He got taken a pick before me in the draft. Before, so dirty, absolutely like fuming. And I think I ended up taking Goulden with the next pick and that, but I was just absolutely fuming. I guess it depends on your structure of that. Like it's a case of like, okay, let's just hypothetically say Dacos is your D3. I'm not sitting there. I won't justify it if Dacos is your D2, and then you're going to put another rookie in your defender, and then you've only got the one premium. But if you've got a setup now where it's Dacos is your D3 and your forward line's a little bit more thin, I'm not against that at all. I think most people will sit there and go, okay, Dunkley, Cogs are your top two, and then you got Rosie, Taranto. I could definitely see if you're not confident on Taranto, let's hypothetically say Port this week. It's Horn Francis is the one that gets more CBAs, and it's say Butters and Rosie kind of split them, and it's Wines and William Drew and those sort of guys, and then you kind of go a little bit colder on Rosie. I definitely can see why people would be more confident on Dylan Moore. Probably seems to be a bit more of a consistent scorer as well. So liking the role at the moment, but in saying that, the Hawks are absolutely flying today. I don't expect them to be going this well normally, but he's definitely, as we said, going to get some midfield minutes. So it definitely it's a pod for sure because nobody else is on him.
Looking at the game, it's not like Collingwood have you'd think the North versus Richmond game, Richmond kind of held off a bit, they didn't put the knife to the throat, that kind of thing. You don't really feel like watching the Collingwood game that they've taken that bit of approach, have they? They've kind of come into it feeling, maybe putting some feelers out to what they need to do, but really come into it and be like, okay, this is our actual team. This is kind of like, we're going to play how we're supposed to be playing, right?
Yeah, I don't think Collingwood are actually that good. They won a lot of close games last year, but I think it's because of just how big their fan base is and all the hype around them, making out like they're the best team in the comp. We did talk about, they played great footy, but did get lucky in some of those results last year. Like against North, they came from the clouds to win that game in the last quarter. I'm pretty sure Hawthorn might have been a close game. The Bombers, an absolute freak play in the last dying seconds, and Essendon weren't a crash hot team last year. So it's not like they put in a really good performance against Geelong. They only just beat Carlton. Carlton's that mid, fighting for that mid road. Richmond did a bit of a number on Collingwood earlier in the year. So can we actually sit there and West Coast beat Collingwood? So can we?
Yeah.
So are we
over here as well? It was over here. It wasn't even over there.
It was. So can we actually sit there and say, "Oh, Collingwood are this amazing top 14, top 6 team?" And that, if there's a team that's going to drop out of the 8 this year, I think it's the Pies. I think they're a very good team, and they've got great play. Like, I love their players and that. And for a Richmond supporter to sit there and say, I like Collingwood, they're a team that I don't really hate, and that I've never really hated Collingwood. Got a lot of respect for them, big club and stuff. Like, I hate the Bombers with a passion, mate. I hate to say that to you, Joe, because I like you, mate, but I absolutely hate the Bombers with a passion. I hate the Cats and stuff. But the Pies have always had a lot of respect for them. But I don't know if they've got all these gun players, but I don't know if they're actually. Are they actually really that good?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they've added Titch. They've added McStay. They've added Bobby Hill.
They look better. I said that. They look better than that. But are they, is this what we're...
Well, someone has to get in. You'd expect Carlton to get in. Surely, right?
We say, that's the thing. We say Carlton should get in. And Port technically should improve too. There's a couple of teams there that you could argue that could come in. Somebody's got to go out. Like, who else is like gonna, like, you can make a case for all those top 8 teams. Maybe it is the Dogs. We've said that. Maybe without Dunkley and Bevo going full Bevo, it is the Dogs. But
playing Caleb Daniel in the middle. What is this bullshit? Excuse my French.
He's playing ruck, mate. He's playing.
What is going on?
Got to replace Dunkley. Needed a new ruckman.
Caleb Daniel, let's go.
That'd be the most Bevo thing to do. Somebody take that bet. Caleb Daniel to contest one ruck contest this year.
That's a big call. One that you could have a bet on, I reckon. That's pretty good.
Well, we saw Carlton put Patrick Cripps in the ruck last year. It's like, okay, let's just put your Ferrari in the ruck because why not?
Yeah, but he's big.
But at least he's big. At least he's big. Caleb Daniel. But that would be such a Bevo thing to do. Like, you could just say that they'd stuff up some sort of rotation or something, and Bevo would be like, "Get in there, Caleb. This is what you've trained for."
Yeah. Stick it up to the haters. Tell them if you can do it.
It'd be up against someone like Reeves or someone like that. It would be like
against Wits or McAndrew. McAndrew's like 210 centimeters or something.
No, it's going to happen. Watch it. 100% it's going to friggin' happen. They'll have Bont playing like back pocket.
Yeah.
Just I saw it the other day when Phantom put out his most influential Supercoach people and stuff like that. Very proud that I was 32nd on the list. Yeah, but Bevo was 17, and I thought Bevo was way too low. Bevo's got to be in the top 3 most influential Supercoach people.
Yeah, he's dictating what happens to Bont, to English, to freaking McRae, to Libba. This guy is at the heart of everything we're doing. Bloody hell, unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't get Leon Cameron as his assistant coach in there. It's like, let's really stuff up these teams.
What is Leon doing these days? Is he's gone playing for someone else or taking a break?
I did see him around mentioned somewhere, unless it was local footy, but no, he was. I know what he's doing. He's doing Sydney's Academy.
Okay, yep. Yeah, I remember that.
Yep.
So we've got a question. Best 3 for each team.
So far, I'm gathering they're talking about Hawthorn, Collingwood.
Yep.
Yeah.
100. I think Lipinski's been best player on the ground so far.
Okay.
But just because of their ball movement, it's probably freed him up really well and that. So I think DeGoey's done a lot of good stuff as well through that mid. It's their 3 guys that can kind of rotate through. So it's Adams, Lipinski, DeGoey, Adams for me for Collingwood. Yep. And if I have to put a 4th, it's probably Josh Dacos out on the outside. But yeah, those three in particular, and just it's hard to like lock down because they're just rotating halfback, midfield. So doing a really good job. And then for the Hawks, outside my man Dylan Moore, who's just absolutely
Pedo, mate. It's gotta be up there.
It's got to be. I've got to say, yeah. Warple's been extremely good, very good. Amon, very good on the outside again. He's a really good pickup for Hawthorn. And that, and then a bit of, and we'll mention the young fella, Mackenzie. I think he's done some really nice stuff as well.
He has.
It feels a bit like Richmond's very good at having some good players, but then the rest of their players like do stuff. They're very good depth. They're very good like out of your best 22. You know, they've still got really good quality players from like number 13 onto 22. Whereas it feels a little bit like Collingwood is very much, you've kind of got your 5 or 6 really good players like we're seeing today. You know, Lipinski, Adams, Crisp, the Ruckman, Pendlebury probably in there, and maybe Dacos, and the rest of them don't do. They can't compensate and pick up the rest of the team. Is that kind of fair to say?
Yeah, it's interesting with that because like you've looked since McRae's come in, and like Sidey's really dropped off, and you know, even I think IQ there was a lot of hype about him, and even he's kind of dropped off on that. It's a bit of a kind of a Carlton feel about them, not where Carlton pay like their top 10 players and then they've got to find any rookie they can to fill their squad and stuff like that. The players have actually got better players than that on their squad, but they kind of rely on the same sort of 8 or 10 in any particular match to dominate, and the others just kind of roll around and kind of there and that, but play their role kind of thing, just role plays.
It felt
there's enough.
The Dogs were a little bit like that as well. You kind of got like the 10 good players, and then the rest of them, you know, always end up being VFL guys that get rotated through, or guys like Vandermeer, these ones who have a couple of good games throughout the season, but the rest, you know, that they can't really stand up.
There's guys that play 20 games for it, and you're like, who the hell's that? Like, Geelong, Richmond, in particular, Sydney is another one. Like you go through their list, and it's just like it's player number 18, Geelong, Jack Henry. Like it's just so much depth there, and they can get you on any given day. So and probably though they well, actually even the Cats probably don't even have that standout. Like you're looking through the Brownlow or stuff these days, and you're going, okay, these guys aren't probably finishing top 10. But they just kill you in so many different ways and stuff, you know, and it's hard to find a weakness throughout the list, and that's what we're talking about Richmond before. Now that the weakness was the midfield, and now it's not. And Sydney, where's sort of their weakness? It's so these teams, you know, are building. You know, it's not necessarily superstars and that, but it's just lists that. You know, you just can't find holes in them.
It's your Max Holmes, it's your Menegolas, it's just out of the blue, you know, like players that haven't always dominated, that have been on the list for maybe a couple of years, and all of a sudden you're seeing them more and more often, like all of a sudden, like in the middle, for example, breaking lines, you know, Max Holmes, you're close, whatever, just all of a sudden find themselves in space, running through the middle of the MCG and kick a goal, like in a really big moment. It's just like, when did that happen? Like, my God, like it's you just have all of these players that might start playing a role, but man, when you're in a culture that breeds success and excellence and high standards, it's insane how it's just contagious, and everyone, either you fully buy in or we just simply get rid of you to someone else. Like it's amazing the environment that you're in, how important.
That's where Carlton, I think, struggle a lot, because it's what the culture and the lack of winning and success that they've had for quite a while. They've got some gun players down there, but it's just just have that winning mentality and breadwinner and that, and when it's your time to go they just don't have it in that. They should be a lot more successful than what they probably are with their list. Probably a little bit the Doggies are the same. Where like for Geelong, it's just for so long they've been such a successful team. Hawthorn, Even last year, they probably still that culture where they just find ways to win games and stuff like that. It's just been inbuilt with that club for 30 years that no matter what happens and that they just find ways to be successful, and players, come through their Box Hill system. And I think that comes a lot of it too strong, not just seniors, but these clubs have really strong VFL setups, and Geelong and Richmond and Hawthorn with Box Hill have been for such a long time. So it doesn't matter who comes through those reserves. They're usually big body. They come in and they just fit in and play their role straight away. And it's not just their role players, but they actually become vital to that team's best 18 or best 22. Mate, Voss will sort us out. We've had a terrible coaching staff for long. Calm the baggers. I hope, mate. I've got nothing against the Blues. My old man's a Carlton supporter, so I'm probably the one Richmond supporter that doesn't hate the Blues. It's a bit of a soft spot. So, and one of my closest mates is a big Blue as well. So I actually hope they do well. I've got no hate to the Blues at all. So hopefully, Vossi does sort you guys out, but with our discussion on this group chat, as I said, one of my closest mates is a really big Blue supporter, and it's just the list build, which is a problem. Been a problem, we go through it and go, okay, so you've got so many of these high-profile players from other clubs, which you've had to pay big money on, and outside of that, obviously, something goes. So you got already Harry and Kernell, who have played. I don't think they can play any better, or maybe they might make another 10 goals a season or whatever. So, but they're big money. You got a midfield where you've got Cripps and Walsh. Hewitt's been an awesome pickup. I think me and Chris about the only two have been on this for years before Hewitt really broke out last year. How underrated that guy was, and he's probably not on the big cash that some of these others are. But gun. But then you've brought Shearer on pretty decent money as well. Doherty came from the Lions, Sard from the Bombers. They're obviously not cheap. You had Zach Williams on about $800,000 a year. Jack Martin's on whatever ridiculous money. It is so. There's all these big names on big money, and it's like, okay, where some of these other clubs, we talk about Geelong, where they've never overpaid players. Okay, there might have been. There's always maybe some dodgy stuff with the fact that, well, it's not even dodgy. You can go and live at Torquay for the same price, or even cheaper than to live in, the city of Melbourne. And they're getting more bang for their buck for big houses down on the beach and stuff. That's just I think Geelong finally worked that out one time, that they've actually got golden real estate for some of these players, but they don't overpay their players. Some of these guys that we've come in that actually do really well might only be on sort of 400,000. And your Zach Williams and your Jack Martin shouldn't be anywhere near. So now that, because you're paying those guys so much money, you haven't been able to bring in those middle type guys that we're talking about. You don't have your Lipinski type in that lineup, and I think that's where the Blues struggles are. And I struggle to see. I think they're definitely, their list they have is good enough to make the 8, but who's stepping up from them to propel them from that sort of 7th, 8th, 9th team to take them to a premiership side? Like, who's lit player 16, 17, 18, 22?
EDK.
Ferguson,
and he'll be leaving very soon as well. So that's another player off the books very soon.
That's it, because how do they afford to put him in? So I should switch back on because I'm watching the cricket at the moment. Ferguson, I've been flicking through both games. Fergus Green, yes, look at that on the replay.
I gotta say, Cam McKenzie, man, I am really warming up to this guy. I'm getting close. There is a question that was asked in the chat here by Matthew, whether or not we're going to pick or remove players based solely on these pracky matches. Look, I don't think you can solely base all of your decision on just what happens in a practice match, of course.
No.
But, seeing with your eyes how a player plays, whether or not they pass your eye test, what sort of role they've got, I think it's really important that you do pay close attention in these pracky games, because outside of these, you're just hearing what happens on the training track. And to be completely honest, I'm seeing with my own eyes what this Cam McKenzie kid's doing, and he's just kicked the goal now from a set shot, that if I wasn't watching and paying attention, I wouldn't be anywhere near as impressed if, for example, if someone just said, oh yeah, Cam McKenzie played, he got a few disposals, he kicked the goal. But I'm watching him play through the zone, finding space, demanding the ball. These are things that you got to take into consideration. So not solely, but it plays a big role.
I think as well, it might not stop you from picking players, but I think it's good. It's a good tool to be used to not pick players. So someone like a Darcy Cameron and Cox, for example, people were talking a lot about, oh, okay, they can both work together. One's not going to get as much ruck time. It's going to be like Sean Darcy and Luke Jackson, that kind of thing. Whereas now they're basically almost 50-50 in the hit-outs and the ruck time, and it's like, well, neither of them become an option. Similar to a Lloyd Meek and Ned Reeves, that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, just clear your team and just pick it on the stats from this game. And that no, like you do a lot of, like we've all done a lot of research and you have a lot of the sort of the feedback and the data that we've had through the preseason. But yeah, as you said, the eye test on these to actually see them playing in the roles that you want to play. It's not necessarily about how they score, but it's about seeing them in the particular roles. And that, like today, we talked about Will Day being an option, and that I'm seeing him starting, in defense, and that straight away to me, that's okay. That's not good because this guy needs to play midfield unless he had if there was no James Sicily, it's a different story because he might be an intercept marker then. But I can see that that's not the role he's got. So to me, that's a rule. I rule him out. And that, so you're watching to see where people are lining up, and you talked about before DC and Cox. I see Cox line up first bounce. To me, that's DC gone, and that because now he's not the first option, the starting ruckman. So you're using these games to reconfirm all the data and everything you've read or listened to leading into these matches, and that. And unfortunately, only the one game to go with, but it's probably nearly better than the 3 games we're used to, because the first 2 games they kind of mixed a lot of teams. Here we're getting the best 22s playing, or maybe they've got the 26, so who's going to probably be in the emergencies and that. So if you've got a rookie like Cam McKenzie in this game starting on the field, there's a big chance you're going, okay, Sammy Mitchell's seen enough of the preseason to go, this kid's starting round 1. Like they're not going to completely change their lineup from here to next week, or what are we, like less than 14 days of the season, something like that.
14 days. That's it.
Yeah,
exactly
14 days.
weeks.
So yeah, clubs aren't going to change massively from here to 14 days away. They're starting structures. So so it does make as we said, if you've seen enough from some players' roles and that. Like we talked about before, okay, Sicily wasn't scoring that well. I'm trying to find where he's on at the moment, only 34 fantasy, but he's still taking kick-ins. When he hasn't taken kick-ins, they're still looking at him and finding him, and they've still had quite a bit of ball from Collingwood down to the fence. So that you don't sit there and go, okay, Sicily's only scored a 50 Supercoach, I'm ruling him out. And that because players still have bad games. And that, and there's reasons for that, but the role hasn't changed. So that's what you're focusing on.
You got to be careful, otherwise you might end up captaining Warple first week. Just if you just getting entirely on this one game.
Just put him in.
Well, that's like Warple as well. Ooh. See what happens. I'm getting convinced, boys. Getting convinced. He's had a lot of contested possessions. I was just looking 12s.
It's that you know what? It's that price, because I've got Zeeble at the moment, and I've got Toby McLean sitting in my midfield just because I can move Zeeble out, put McLean back in, and get a guy that price in my midfield. And it's like, okay, there's Horn Francis, who's also a forward. You've got Sheed, Setterfield. There's options all in that price. My team structured to pick one of those guys. Now, if none formulate, then I can go down to a Cam McKenzie and just bank the money or upgrade someone there. There's other options for me there. But if I've given my size, set it up in a way there's the ability to pick one of these guys. Now, I don't think it'll be Warple. It'd be the fact that he really wasn't on my list. And that's why the question before is like, what changes? Well, if the guy's not really on my list, I'm not going to then go, okay, this one performance is making me change everything, as we've got a bit of a scuffle happening in the footy. Where if, for example, Warple was on your list and the eye test, you've seen enough today, well, then you've got the confidence to pick him.
Exactly. There's also sneaky Nazai Wanganimulira, who's playing half back.
Yeah.
Kicking.
It's made me slow down on Sinclair and that because I think it's another mouth to feed down there. Sort of the way the Saints game plan was, it wasn't really slow ball movement. Where the Bombers, that's what we heard. It was meant to be slow ball movement, but we didn't see it the other day. But we kind of hope we get a bit of that because Ridley, Redmond, McGrath, I'd happily pick all three of them if they're going to play chip around footy and chip it to each other. But
exactly,
it's until you actually see it. That's been the hard thing with the Bulldogs, and especially with GWS, because GWS we get very little coverage of them anyway. There's nobody going. There's nobody that goes down to their games or their training because who the hell supports them? And then on top of that, then they don't play the first match sim, so we got no actual footage of them. And then they roll out a bunch of under 12s. Tom Green has 50 touches against them. And at half time goes off to a Dua Lipa concert or something like that.
It's Lucky Whitfield on a boat, casually getting 34 disposals off half back. Like, what the hell's going on?
Lucky Whitfield's got his nan playing against him and gets 34 touches, and that is like, look, we don't know. No one's seen any footage of this.
Yeah, exactly.
They would have just made it up.
If he's versing Stumps, like, there's nobody there to really compare.
That's the other thing. Who is GWS's reserves as well? Like,
maybe they played the women's team. I don't know.
I love it when they ask the coach after the game. Yeah, he looked really strong. Yeah, it looks really strong. Like, bro, you're an AFL player playing against.
And he's in my team. Like, it's bad because I'm sitting there going, if this guy's playing half back, how can I not pick him? And that,
exactly.
At the same time, we've got literally no footage of this at all. We've got nobody sitting there who anybody in the community that I'd probably trust where I go, oh no, I went down and watched it, and fair dinkum, you have to put Whitfield in there. I'm going off such little information about GWS. Put anybody down at Tassie, it'd be easy to find information about them.
My question, Swizz, is with Dacos kind of getting nullified quite a lot this game.
Yeah.
Does it the capacity for that to happen again? Does it put you off picking the pick?
Yep. It does. That because this is what we talk about eye test. One of the things I was talking about, especially with Chris and Ben, going, okay, who about that whole tagging thing? Who's going to get tagged? Will Dacos see any tagging this year? And if he does, how does he perform with that? Straight away, this game, he gets tagged and is not performing well. So I've seen the eye test there of what I wanted to see. And he, like, if he came out and he went straight back to the back line and started taking all these kick-ins, or if he worked through it, then all of a sudden I'm like, I've seen it. Okay, I've got enough confidence to pick this kid. But it's gone the complete opposite. So, and it's not like we're in a situation where, okay, Dacos is that only guy there at 500K if you want a 500K player. There's ways to get the 100K to go up, or there's still Ridley, Hayden Young, Redmond. You could even go, down to say, if you've confidence on Ed Richardson, he scores. There's guys in that range. McGrath, if you're happy with his halfback role, there's
the problem with these Essendon players.
There's
because
so
we're playing
many
St Kilda this week.
Yeah,
and St Kilda have no one in the forward line.
Yeah,
our
true.
back line, our defenders are going to look like bloody absolute superstar legends. You could end up having a lot of people sucked into picking these Essendon defenders.
That's right. But then, it's more a case for me that which one doesn't do well because of that. So if McGrath comes out and only gets a 60, it's okay, that probably questions me more, where I expect all three of them to do really well this week. So it's more about I'm ruling out players than some more putting them in, because I probably had a squad of about 60. I've probably narrowed it down to about 45. So it's okay, which 15 are getting crossed off my list? And right now, Dacos is making it very easy for me to go, okay, no, not taking you. I'm just using that extra 100K and going the confidence of, Sicily, Doherty, Stewart. That's where I'm at. Hey, if the 50% of the comp want to keep picking him, no problems. I'm happy to run one of the big boys against you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's what watching the game does. You got to watch it.
And that's the thing as well, is what we said at the start about locking in. Like, there's a big advantage with locking in kind of a guy that you know is going to be top of the position. So, yeah.
You get their points, and you don't waste trades trying to get them in. So that's probably because at the end of the day, it's all about having as many of these top guys as possible in your team as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
There's no faster way than having them in right from the start when you have unlimited trades. It's just simple that way. You lock yourself in with the top dogs. Of course, there's a question though of whether or not how much you're willing to overpay to get that. Personally, I don't like a big fan of overpaying that much for Clayton Oliver because I think he plays his best in the wet. I think he's the best winter footballer in the competition. And so you can get him just in time before winter, I think. And you'll be laughing.
Yeah, I've got Laird instead of Clary at the moment. Yeah, they're lining up again here, but I think that's a miss. But one thing actually I was getting on that is the other thing we talked about before is Collingwood's ins. So what have we added in? Mitchell, McStay, Bobby Hill, Frampton. So
who's
all
looked
four
shit today, by the way.
Have absolutely looked crap. But you would think at least three of them, potentially all four of them, are best 22. So, and outside of Frampton, who's playing key, but Mitchell is a noted point scorer. McStay is going to take some points. He's probably coming in as their number one forward. Because I probably my checks have been a very serviceable player, but he's not a number one key forward. Bobby Hill's not taking that many points, but it's what Mitchell does, as we said, frees up some of these other guys. So all of a sudden, Collingwood's pie. Now, let's say people are confident enough that they win the same amount of games as last year. So they're taking, say, 60% of the Supercoach pie each week. But then you're now fitting in a guy that's probably going to average 100. So it's 100 points off that pie each week that they didn't have. McStay's probably kicking his two, probably going at 60 points. Maybe it probably actually went better at Brisbane. He went about 75 a game. So, and this is guys that they're over the guys they're replacing. So the guys that are coming out of the side are probably, your Finlay McRae was getting some games, or some of those rookie guys were getting games last year. So you're going to see these guys from Collingwood drop out who are probably scoring 20, 25, 30 points. So all of a sudden there's probably 100, 120 points of that Collingwood pie less for them to share around. Yeah. So how does that affect then their scoring of, your Pendles, your Crisp and those sort of guys, but also how does it affect young Dacos? Because they don't actually have, he floated around, did whatever he wanted last year from halfback. Yeah. And even just, again, with Mitchell coming in, that means either Crisp or Pendles, or as we've seen with the guys like Adams and that going forward, probably one of them drops back at times as well. So that's another mouth for Collingwood to feed. There might just not be as many points for somebody like a Dacos. So everybody's hoping that he goes an extra. Really, if you're picking him, you want him to go maybe an extra 15 to 20% on what he can kind of score. So he is one of those premium guys. Well, we've already just talked that Collingwood have probably lost, 10% of their scoring just with who they've brought in.
And they shared a love already. I mean, they didn't have a single player average 100 points last year. Now they've added more mouths to feed.
Yep.
It's an interesting point, and something I've brought up in the past, talking about a team like North Melbourne, who traditionally last year was scoring so much less than the oppositions, where we don't really have anyone that averages over 100. I mean, LDU's pretty close, and then Cunnington can get there as well. So there's a lot of potential for guys to just jump up in scoring and then not to be really a negative, because there's probably 200 to maybe 250 points just sitting there waiting to go that the opposition were getting because they were just winning more ball than us.
Yep, for sure. And there's obviously teams. Firstly, you're winning, and that helps, but there's teams where it doesn't matter how they go, like the Bulldogs, we always sit there and go, they're a notorious, really good fantasy team, just the way they play and the players that they have. But yeah, if Collingwood, all of a sudden put in, they say they're going to play a different way, Mitchell's playing a different role, but you can't put in one of the best fantasy guys, be it fantasy or Supercoach, for the last, 5, 6, 7 years and sit there and say, okay, this guy's not going to take points off everyone. He's going to be their number one scorer this year.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And some people are still bullish that he could go 110, 115. No, I don't think he's going to go that high. That's why I'm not picking him. But there's no reason why he couldn't go 105 to 110. And the way Collingwood do play, they've already talked about is trying to not have him play that kind of role, because they've played that sort of come in and played that Richmond brand, being because McRae's obviously come from Richmond as a senior assistant, where notorious Richmond in those years didn't have guys that scored massive, outside of even Dusty's best Brownlow year was 117, 118, like that. The Tigers have never been
he was like God tier that year. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's right. And he had maybe the best year that nearly, that he had the kind of year that Gary Ablett had. But Gary Ablett in those years scored like 140, and that because that's the way Richmond played, and Collingwood now play that brand. So why are we expecting Dacos to be 510 guy, and that Collingwood don't play that way?
Yeah, he just had a turnover there as well. Like, he's just not getting the time and space whatsoever. Cam McKenzie's looking so good. He won a clearance just from that center square as well. Yeah, I'm loving what I'm seeing, man.
If only he was cheaper, I think he'd be.
He'll make money still, though.
Yeah, I don't know. 180K is a lot different than like a 123.
It is.
Yeah, but if people are paying 171 for a Jinby, for example,
McKenzie's only mid only, right? Or is he DPP?
Nah, McKenzie's only he's only mid.
Tell you what, if you're a draft player out there, go look at Amon. He's gonna be overlooked by so many people in draft.
He's been great today.
Yeah, it was great. He was actually really underrated at Port the last sort of couple of years. He's going to just sit in that sort of wing midfield and just do whatever he wants.
I think the wing in general has been fairly underrated, and I think it's really only come to light how beneficial they can be ever since Melbourne's, like Langdon, for example, and Hunt, how they both have been able to run all day, every day. They've sort of highlighted just how useful and important it is to have good wingers. So
I would love with
Supercoach.
You know what I'd love? It's because we've got the 30 on field. I would love to see one of the midfield where we've got the 8 on field. One or two of those positions become wingers and have wingers its own position.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That'd make things real interesting, because all of a sudden, we talk about like Hunter and Gaff and Amon and that who'd never get picked, and then all of a sudden you've got to now pick guys like that. It real throw a spanner. What's that? My check down. A bit of a spanner in the works with how we choose our midfield.
But if the All Australian squad doesn't care about wingers, and they just put mids anyway. I don't know.
They put mids at bloody back pocket in the stupid All Australian squad. It's like, let's just pick the best 22 midfielders.
I thought Bevo was unique, but turns out there are a lot more Bevos out there.
Bevo picks the All Australian squad. That's why.
Exactly. Well, it looks like Maya checked back up on his feet. Rush, snap, and misses. Who's taking this kick in?
I'm like, how far behind this game? I'll just catch up there.
MP kicking duties.
Yep. Just find Sicily. That's all we care about.
And that's why Impy's not the one who should take the kick in.
Right.
What the hell is that?
Bang. Yep. Okay. So that's good. That crosses him off.
Josh Dacos has looked good today.
He has. But
he's a
like,
good player. It
he's
just
a good
sucks
player.
that he's been outshined by his brother.
But that's the thing. He's one of those ones that would become on that winger consideration because he would be one of the better wing. It'd be interesting actually, just the standard winger. Who's the highest wing Supercoach scorer out there? And I don't probably maybe Amon if you look at him as just more of a winger, he'd probably be mid wing or something. But yeah, some of these guys who would never get picked in Supercoach teams, all of a sudden they'd actually have a bit more relevance.
That's right.
And it's not like Champion Data wouldn't have stats on how much these guys line up on the wing because they keep stats about everything.
Yeah, if DFS Australia can tell you, what their position was, like, in their heat maps, like centre half back or half forward or ruck, surely Champion Data should be able to provide that as well, of course.
Yeah. Well, I miss the AFL prospectus as well. I know these days it's because everything's online and stuff like that, but yeah I was surprised they don't like give that information out as much. And that I've been lucky because I've had some mates involved in footy clubs, so I've got hold of the Champion Data stuff in the past of what the clubs get, which I don't anymore. But like obviously, there's a lot more in the community that tracks a lot of this stuff for us. But yeah, the amount of data some of the football clubs get is just ridiculous. But there's enough people out there. They were actually talking about for a while having like sort of letting fans get some of this content because there's enough interest in it. And then I think that for whatever reason they went away from that. So it's a bit of a shame because I'd definitely subscribe to it.
Yeah, for sure.
I know they do a lot of like accelerometer things and stuff like that. We talk about meters gained, but a lot of it's like meters ran on the field, that kind of thing. Those sensors that they put in the back of their jerseys, they're pretty magical, some of the stuff it comes up with. Like I know at training, they always have them in, and I think everyone's got them in during games as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, it tells you everything, like max speed, average speed, how many sprint efforts, how many repeat efforts in a minute, for example. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, maybe it's because they don't want, players copying shit because, with the fans getting this sort of information, it's the same with knowing what the players are on. But it all comes out anyway. Like, if you know the right people in clubs, like you find out a lot of information. And even like I won't go into the story, but I had a mate who worked for St Kilda maybe 20 years ago. And the first of the story goes like this. We were sitting on the couch and he's like, "Oh, do you want to come to the St Kilda Brisbane game this weekend?" And we're like, "Yeah, I'll come." And I was up in Brisbane. And it's like, "Yep." So I went to the airport the next day, bang, up there with him. Nice. About 3 days later, Mum was like, "Oh, are you coming for dinner?" And I'm like, "I've been in Brisbane for 3 days." And stuff like that. Go that. But yeah, we're in the hotel with the players and stuff like that. And the St Kilda notorious with things going on off field. And that, that's why I'm not going to repeat stuff like that. But there's stuff like I've seen being on these couple of these trips where you're like, okay, and then you hear different rumors come out and stuff. And you go, okay, yeah, that was true. And that, like, and then also because of friends working in like, he went to other clubs and other mates, other clubs. There's, then more information that comes out, and they're like, oh, bound by confidential. Everybody, if you're in the know or you have people in the know, it's amazing how much things get leaked out. And people are like, how did that get leaked out of that club or that get leaked? Well, there's so many stuff in these clubs. That's right. And I know like that people want to keep it all secret and that because they're worried about the media and stuff like that. It would be awesome to see one club just do the reverse and go, you know what, we're just going to completely open the doors and let media and fans and whatever. Like Richmond, about when we did the what was it, the 10-year plan or whatever it was that Benny announced, which started all this premiership campaign and stuff like that. So myself and there was about 20 other people, but myself and a mate, we were in the boardroom when he announced it to us, the social media people, and actually talked it through. Well, not announced, but we talked through different ideas and stuff about it. that they were sort of coming in to get sort of the fans' view. So Richmond supporters who are very involved in social media, who actually obviously connect with a lot of the supporters out there. So so I was up in the boardroom and knew all about this before it was announced in the papers and stuff. And there was different discussions had and different ideas presented by the group of people that were in there who were just really fans / members. So that's a thing that some clubs are open to do. Other clubs they wouldn't even consider doing stuff like that. But
other clubs like my own would have bloody CEO extension.
Your club, your club. My other half's an AFL member, and they weren't even going to acknowledge her as being an Essendon member. That which is like some of the things Essendon. Yet they still messaged me. They emailed me everything to do with membership, open days, all stuff, because I was a 3-game member. Maybe 4 or 5 years ago for the Bombers, because I went there to get her a jumper, and they said, "Oh, we're throwing in 3-game memberships with jumpers." Like, okay, I'll sign up. Not that I have to. So I'm technically been an Essendon member, and they still send me more stuff than what they do her, even though she's a whatever class member that she is. Which is club. Essendon's amazing, funny club.
I know a lot more clubs this year. I think just in general, AFL's really stepped up their game with a lot of social media stuff. So a lot of clubs now are going through, you've seen a lot of the Hawthorn documentary stuff. I don't know if you've seen that, Swizz, some of that stuff that Hawthorn's doing, their media things with the players and kind of the behind-the-scenes documentary. North's definitely doing that as well. I'm not sure if Richmond's doing it, but I think a lot of teams are actually moving more towards this. Even just in the Supercoach space, it was always very exclusive. Al Patton and Dan and those guys are now like half a dozen people, a dozen people are doing articles for Herald Sun and things like that. So everyone's kind of getting a bit more community involved. I think it's something that sports like NFL and things like that have done really well in the past. Even like getting players to do interviews after the game, all that kind of stuff. We always had BT, but that was it really. Whereas they have 5 or 6 or 10 players almost that will do media stuff as part of their obligations. So would love to see a bit more of that in the AFL, a bit more behind the scenes. You can actually chat. You get more involved with the players, and I think it helps to grow the fan base as well. Instead of being like, you're a player and I'm a person and we cheer you, but we know nothing about you, like that kind of thing. It's I think it's great for the game.
Yeah, for sure. And that's been probably one of the biggest things. So not even just with clubs, but journalists and that. It's so they kind of make it like they're so exclusive and the best way to sort of, spread the word is by having more people involved. And that's what, as you said, the Supercoach community has definitely been doing this year. And just sport in general, like the more sort of people that we have, on a grassroots or a social media point of view, is just going to spread because, there's for different reasons, there's people that don't follow certain journalists or, certain clubs and that, and, they might need us to break that ice and stuff. Like I'm the one I'm a big fan of is Her Way by Abby, I think the 12-year-old girl, because she's been doing a great lot of stuff in the the women's sports space, because there's just not a lot of people that cover that. So I know I've been following a lot of her stuff and that, and it's great that a lot of the female athletes in this country are giving her a lot of time. And because of that, now it's growing more and more, and they're actually getting more coverage than what they probably would have. And that by letting, a 12-year-old come in and, interview and that, where I would have thought sort of 5-6 years ago, a lot of the guys and footy clubs, outside of, as you said, Al, or even them, outside of, the real big footy names, they wouldn't let anyone in there.
How long have the little
Abdul's just posted up live Supercoach scores.
Oh, nice.
Good man, Abdul.
Yeah.
How long has the Oz Kicker of the Year thing been going on for? Like when they would bring the kids on TV and they would interview them every week. Like you won the NAB Oz Kicker of the Week, and then you're going into the.
It's got to be only recently, does it?
It hasn't been going around for too long.
It's been a while. I always wondered I think he kind of fell off a little bit this year, but remember that young kid, the one that used to do the Into the Fire videos where he'd get all the draftees on his channel? like the guys who are going to be drafted get all like the top 20 players, that kind of thing. They were always really good. Kind of someone extra, like you were saying, the person who just does the women's show. This guy would do all the all like kind of the younger kid, not younger kids, but do kind of more the draftees things. Yeah, journalism outside of Tom Morris and Kane Corns, you know, it's still around a little bit.
You hate Kane, bro, with a passion. You hate him so much.
Yeah, do you know my biggest issue with someone like Kane, because I'll listen to a lot of that draft radio stuff and whatever. He can actually say, there's another one like this, David King, who I don't like at all, and just because of things through work of my former job, I've had to deal with him on a couple of incidents and stuff, but they can actually say some really great, insightful stuff.
Yes,
but they put out so much. It's not even shock media to try to get attention and you know, try to get people talking about what they're saying, that when they actually finally put something good out, nobody actually hears it or listens to it because it's just them spilling more shit.
Yeah. I think David King as well has a lot of I think they can click the link, Joe. I think David all right. I think David King as well has a lot of insight because he does a lot of talking with the people involved with the clubs as well. So like he spent a couple of days, he went out to Essendon one day and then went to North, obviously, and went down to see Richmond and all these things. And it's like just the chitty chats that you'd have with like a coach or with a couple of players that you wouldn't necessarily do like on the radio type thing, and relay that kind of information is really important.
Yep, no, for sure, 100%.
Look at that. Cam McKenzie, 81 at 3/4 time.
It's not bad.
Where's
Nick Dacos, 62, whilst tagged at 3/4 time.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because we've been getting sort of only the fantasy updates there, but we're looking at that. It's like Sicily there. What's he, 82?
Yeah, Sicily, 82.
And that's the thing, because Supercoach rewards the intercept marks more, which you've started to do more of that. So even though this is Sicily has not had a great game, but we were talking earlier, his ability to find a 50-point quarter is, and he just can zone off and take 2 or 3 intercept marks and get himself going. And realistically, I was looking at this. This is an awful game for him. He's probably going to still finish with 110.
Exactly.
Yeah.
17 disposals, 9 marks. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the 9.
Yeah.
I think it was a 5-mark quarter, that one, with maybe 3 intercepts there. So all of a sudden, you know, and it helps with the game being close, which obviously helps you scoring. But yeah, his ability there, like, I don't know exactly what he was on at half time, but it wouldn't have surprised me if that was a 50-point Supercoach quarter for him. And then if he comes out and does that again, all of a sudden he's got 130, 140 game after having an absolute dreadful first half.
Yeah, and I think that one in particular, I think it was around a 50-point quarter, because I think maybe halfway through that quarter, the players were looking up and not having a lot of run anymore. They're starting to tire, and there was a bit more chipping around the back line and trying to pinpoint their way through the zone defense as opposed to rushing it like they were before. So it's just, if Hawthorn can stay competitive, now obviously it's a massive if, of course. This is just a preseason game, and there's no way Collingwood are going all out right now. But if somehow Hawthorn were able to stay competitive during the regular season, come fourth quarter, when the players are tired and they're chipping the ball around a bit more, we could see some really big scores for him.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard that, Big J, but we were just talking about Sicily having a 50-point Supercoach quarter there.
Yeah. No, it's pretty massive, hey?
So are they parking Pendles, Elliott, and Howe? Are they out?
I think there's a couple.
Yeah, they've subbed out. They've brought in Hoskin Elliott, Carmichael, Markov, and Reece McGuinness. And yeah, that's some of the boys that have been subbed out by the looks of things.
This game's very competitive. Like, just following on from what you guys were saying, if we had a game where Hawthorn got slaughtered and another team had a lot of behinds, what's going to happen with Sicily scoring as well? Because he'll make 100 now, so price for what you're paying in Supercoach is okay. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see kind of what happens down the track when they're not so competitive. Does he become a real viable must-have pick at that point?
Newcomb just says, "Get out of my way, boys."
Absolutely did. It's hit GF beautifully there. That's a mark. What do you think of it, mate? Yep.
KO keeps skipping.
Yeah, I'm watching it Foxtel through my phone, so a couple of times I've been a few seconds behind.
That's the plan. So, Swizz, are you much of a gamer? I guess is the question.
No and yes in the same sentence, and that like I do have the PS5. I must have updated first time I fired up in ages. So, and then on the laptop, I'm more like if Grand Theft Auto came out tomorrow, and that you'd see me pushing over kids to buy it, go to eBay games or getting it online or whatever and stuff like that. Like I love them, love like the Far Cry stuff like that. Anything I can just mind numbing, go around and shoot things and whatever. Love that sort of stuff. And then the other kind of stuff. So I love like Football Manager. Absolutely addicted to Football Manager. 23 and that, and I've got like the extra leagues loaded. So I think I've started like a Division 11 team in the English football season because it's my journey to take them up to Premier League and that. So because I love all the stats and things like that, and we'll do that great. I think I've uploaded the Aussie one. I haven't played that yet, but the soccer club connected to our cricket club, Noble Park Drinner, they're on there, and I was like, do I start a new load up with that and stuff? So it's usually like in the other half's watching TV in bed at night. And it's like, okay, I've got an hour here. I'll fire up the old Football Manager. So yeah, to answer your question, like I don't play a lot of the other stuff, like World of Warcraft and stuff that people say. But that's great. I did see that advertised. That'll be through Big Ant, and I'm pretty sure that'll be my mate Rama will be behind that. I know he definitely played a part on the cricket one. So yes, I'll definitely be getting that. Little story about that because I was chatting to him recently. It fell through because of COVID, but they did the Ashes game and the cricket, the latest cricket Ashes one, and I was going to actually be in it on the career mode. And unfortunately, because of COVID and stuff, it all fell through. But that would have been literally the highlight of my life if I'd if I could be a playable character. Because the idea they wanted to take a community player and bring them through and that. So that would have been freaking awesome. I love the idea. I hope they do in the future. If he's listening, he's a big super coach at Rama. So, mate, if you're listening, tuned in, get me back. I want to do it. Put me in a game. As Sicily just kicks down Darcy Cameron's throat there. But again,
it still counts. It's still effective. It was still over 50 meters.
It was over 50 meters. What a great rule.
That rule is so dodgy.
Yeah, the have you had a look at the graphics and stuff so far?
The graphics don't look I mean, there's better looking games, but I was just thinking if it, depending on the price and the playability of it, might do a bit of.
I think it's $79.
Yeah, it's gonna be $79 for sure.
Do a bit of a let's play type thing on the channel, just something extra that people can follow.
I'm more than happy to get involved in that. Yeah. I'm usually pretty average at those sort of games.
I'm shocking. Sports games, I'm terrible. Oh my
what about the Magic Grand Theft Auto, bro? There's Hogwarts Legacy out. You're not on that?
That's true. Hogwarts Legacy is good.
No, I was really annoyed. I didn't realize the Magic Round tickets came out mid-December.
Oh yeah,
because I was like, I don't think how much the other half, how keen she was about me doing it, but I was up for the weekend watching multiple games away and stuff. But then she's like, "Can't you do that in Melbourne every week?" Like, you probably got a point there.
The trick is you tie it in with going away on holidays. Yeah.
Well, I did talk to her about that same Barossa, and she loves the Bombers. Like we're meant to be going to St Kilda Essendon tomorrow, so she does love the Bombers. So I probably could have done that, but then she doesn't really want to go watch Richmond away. She's had to do that a few times. So, and usually when I'm away, we don't have a great record. God, I've seen some absolute trouncings of. That's a question for our viewers out there. What's the either? It doesn't have to be footy. But what's the best like sporting event or game or something that you've seen while on trip?
A couple of years ago for my 30th, I went over to Perth in like the middle of March, and randomly the North Freo game was there. And it was the start of our downfall.
Randomly.
Yeah, and it was the start of our downfall, and we got third, slaughtered by like 100 points, and I was really sad. But that's probably the only one that's really kind of. I haven't. A lot of people from the north side will go down to like Tassie. They'll do Tassie trips because obviously we play there. But yeah, I've never really done much of like being a big interstate type traveler. I'll try and catch games like in Melbourne. Yeah.
We did it last year, 3 of us from the cricket club. We went to the North Melbourne Geelong and then Hawthorn Sydney, double header in Tasmania.
Yep.
Oh, hang on. We'll stop that chat for a second.
Pinsky. What's happened to his shoulder?
Yep. Well, he's in a lot of hurt.
He is.
I think
he's my best on at halftime. He's not my best. I think the goalie's probably gone a little bit past him, but
yeah.
It's
Crisp is sucking people in, and now Will Day's on 90 points.
Yes, Will Day's third quarter was big. Yeah, but on that, so that was awesome doing the double last year, and I think that's a great idea. Like there was the Anzac weekend, so able to go down to the boys. We got the hire car, and then obviously the 2-hour drive up, and went and saw that. So. I don't know how many others actually did that. They probably just flew in for the one game, but the idea to fly in for two. I went to we had the double in Queensland last year as well. So I went to Gold Coast Richmond and then Brisbane Essendon with Benny Boy. So they have the two Queensland games again. So yeah, I think if the AFL thinks about that more, like I know they prefer the, Adelaide plays one week, Port Adelaide plays next week, and so there's always a game of footy on. And it's probably easier for the bigger clubs, but for your Sydney GWSs or your Brisbane Gold Coast to get the double header up, you can make a real weekend. It's probably easier like for your boys' weekends because you might support SR, support Richmond or North or whatever. Makes it sometimes harder unless you just have mates who support that one club. But then to able to sit there and go, okay, we can go watch 2 games, and you get to see your club and I get to see mine. So there was definitely a few others that did jumped on that. So definitely enjoyed that. Done a few good little road trips. We drove to Canberra to watch Heath Shaw have 44 touches against the Tigers, and they beat us by about 15 goals. I think that was the game he got 200 or so Supercoach points. And then we drove back and we're like, well, that was crap. Do we want to go to Adelaide the following week and go to Port Adelaide, Melbourne? So we went on that trip as well. But that was actually good fun. Haven't done. We went to New Zealand for my Bucks, and I thought we were hoping because it's Anzac weekend, the Saints were going to have a game there, but that was like they end up stopping it. Because you book these things before the fixture comes out, so we end up doing the league and union over there, which was an amazing experience. But one of my mates, Toddy, and I think another mate of mine, Chris, they went over to the China game, so I think they've done China twice.
Wow,
what an experience! Which will never obviously happen again. So really jealous of that. It's not the pie and sauce. It was the bat on a stick or whatever they were eating.
What do you mean
sorry
they didn't have a...
Sorry to our Chinese friends out there.
That was so good. I was not expecting that one.
They're not have Australian snacks. That's like perfect, like marketing,
and just to hear their insights about it, because everyone's like, it's great success and took the game to China, but they're like, there were so many free tickets given out for that leading in. They're like a ridiculous amount, and then most of the corporates and stuff weren't even watching the game. They were out, at functions and tents or whatever and stuff. So he goes, we're like one of the couple only people actually properly watching the game. But just the fact that they've seen a game in China, it hurts me so much because I would have loved that experience. And we were so disappointed that we missed out on the New Zealand one because, whatever it was, 6-7 of us on a Bucks party would have been amazing. In the end,
the only state game I watched was the
I would have loved
the final.
I would love if they did some more international stuff. Maybe go down to like UK or do like a US game or something like that. You could fit it around maybe the bye rounds, like you have their game and then they have the bye the next week kind of thing. That'd work out all right, I think, teams wise. But yeah, just kind of expand the game a little bit to a certain point. There's enough fans, I think, to fill out one stadium. It doesn't have to be a huge stadium, there's enough fans overseas to fill out one stadium. We had a big run kind of media-wise with Pat McAfee a few years ago, and then that fizzled out really quick. So,
well, they've missed the opportunity this year because the Ashes is on. So I got quite a few mates heading over for the Ashes, and that's around the bye weekend. So could you imagine? And that's where it's your GWS or Gold Coast. And if they go, like, I'm all for going for 20 teams and bringing in the Northern Territory and as well as Tasmania. I think, well, Tassie need to come in. And I think it probably, like, I've used to work and live in Indigenous communities. So, their whole life's based around footy. And I think you could actually put better support around Indigenous people if you had the teams. So the 20 teams, I think it could work. But obviously there's going to be games there where there's going to be lack of support. So why couldn't you sit there, even if it was Tasmania GWS, which nobody's going to, but you throw that in London while the Ashes is on, and every Aussie expat or every Aussie that's over there watching the Ashes goes, oh yeah, I'm going to go watch footy. And that, like, we were over there in Europe about 6 years ago, and we would have been the same. If we knew there was a footy match on like that, we would have not cared who's playing. Like, I'm at that match.
Yeah, exactly.
You go take North Melbourne, who's like the national Australian animal, and then someone else playing, and then like, so
North Melbourne GWS. Like, how many realistically? A lot of those times, Gold Coast, North Melbourne's played up in the Gold Coast. You don't play them down here in Melbourne. I think it might have been one of the first times last year or something, because they get worried about what's the lack of crowd that's actually going to turn up to that match.
They make the bottom floor basically GA for the most part as well. Or at least they used to, And they'd close. They used to close, like, it might not happen this year under Clarko, but they used to close like the second and the third level and just be like, hey guys, you get in, you can kind of sit in these designated areas, and that's it. So a few games.
So I know, like, fans don't want to, like, miss games, but there's always the way to as another scuffle goes on to repay that on an away game. So you could be playing maybe they say it's the Bulldogs or someone and get your your membership fixed up that way with the extra home game. But there's different things they can definitely do there. Like, I think there's a couple of decent country grounds, like Laverton and Albury. We've seen the success of Ballarat. Bendigo's or Shepparton are like a big enough towns these days. Why, like, GWS is probably the great example of that. I actually am one of the people who are pro the whole GWS expansion, but I think they've got it wrong by putting it in Western Sydney, where it's not the market. Like, I've got no problem them playing in Western Sydney. Maybe it's 3 or 4 games against your Collingwood, Richmond, Essendon. Big games where they're going to pack out the 25,000 stadium. It's not a bad ground to go to, but it's not the easiest to get to as well, especially if you're depending on where you're staying. But the Canberra ground they don't have obviously as much of the population, but it's a big footy area. So they obviously have taken to the GWS a lot more. But why couldn't you say Wagga, which is a more footy community, or Albury, and they're playing, say, Gold Coast or North Melbourne? Why can't you play those games there? You'd pack them out. You get 10,000 people smashed into Albury to watch GWS North Melbourne.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's where I think there's growth there. Or even why, they could sell it as, like, growing. If they're going to grow the game up there, maybe it's like a school game where, like, here we have, like, players come out to schools and stuff like that. Why couldn't they do like, maybe it's like they had the last week with the Friday game? Well, like, could they do GWS North Melbourne on a Friday lunchtime and get all the school kids to come up in Sydney to try to grow the game that way by kind of making them a tender game and packing it out? Like, I think the AFL gets too rigid in a lot of their thinking, or when they do come out with these left field ideas, it's like AFLX. It's like, who the hell is thinking about this? It's like there's no touch with there's some of the fans that will go, hey, here's some actual normal general ideas that could work in footy.
A lot of it feels like 40 and 50-year-olds trying to plan out things for teenagers and young adults. Like, these are the groups that they want to do, and I think that's cool, let's do this. And they try and market it towards kids, and kids are like, what is this nonsense? Young adults, like you're saying, why would they come and do this? That stadium idea is fantastic. You don't have to do it all the time, but once around or something like that, go and do this, open it up or something.
even country round annoys me because okay, why can't we do proper country round? Like okay, I've never been a big fan of okay, Geelong probably deserve the home games, whatever. Build a bigger stadium, but I guess they are building a bigger stadium now. So you could kick it off Friday night, Geelong, Essendon, and that down in Geelong to kick off the thing. You have the Bulldogs already play their Ballarat game. Get North Melbourne to play. I think North Melbourne should be out of Tassie. That's my own opinion. And then have the Tassie team. And maybe North Melbourne's second ground becomes Bendigo, where you play 2 or 3 games there. It's already on the, quarter highway. I guess Arden Street's close enough, but I guess you do have quite a bit of support in the northern suburbs. And why couldn't you play you play Gold Coast there that weekend, or one of the Sydney or whoever. And then if I'm a fan, and as crazy as me and my mates are, we're probably booking going, okay, we're going to Geelong Friday night, Saturday Ballarat, Sunday, or Saturday night Bendigo, and then give us the GWS game at Albury or Wagga or whatever. There's enough people that'll go, oh yeah, we'll turn that into a boys' weekend, and that like they're trying to do with this respect round or magic round or whatever the fuck it's called, So it's the same thing. It's there's the ability to engage fans and especially a cool group where a lot of it is us sort of guys who love going to watch footy and watch it with mates and stuff. So. Yeah, I think the hard thing for me now is Saturday afternoon. I talk to mates who still play footy, and that they don't go to any Saturday afternoon games. I play winter cricket. I've played for about 7 years, outdoor winter cricket. So I don't go to any Saturday afternoon games. So my preferred time's Friday night, Saturday night, or even Sunday afternoon. But then, with junior footy, so are they thinking enough about sort of the fixture and how that can work to manage, maximize crowds? But they sit there and go, okay, now it's all about TV. But then if you've got half of Victoria playing local footy, well, it's not like people are tuning in to watch those games anyway, what they can. So, does Thursday night become a thing? Do they try to, get out to a little bit more of the community? There's a whole lot of things that they could think about. As you said, I think it's the wrong people in these positions who are just out of touch to have actually no idea. And it's no different to local sport and that. It's just, unfortunately, they need people with fresh ideas to come in and troll some of these stuff.
I've heard a lot about a lot of people complaining about your Saturday afternoon games with junior sports or Sunday morning games, that kind of thing. And it's oh well, can't take the kids along to come and watch this because they've got their stuff planned already. And it's well, that's the demographic that you're trying to hit a lot of the times, right? So it's tough. Are you guys going to pick Mackenzie after his score of 95 from today's game? That's the question. Are you going to be enticed to pick Mackenzie or Sicily or Warple? I think
Sicily's
the other side.
Sicily's already my team. So.
Yeah. I won't be picking Crisp because he's going to burn me again. I don't 100%. Think anyone's really there from the Pies side. Dacos has done all right for getting tagged half the game. He's done quite well now. But are you enticed to pick up any of your Mackenzie, Warple, Sicily, even Connor McDonald? I think he's only priced at a 250. So if he pumps out another 85 or whatever, he's going to make his money. He's going to get his 150K pretty quick.
Yeah,
Mackenzie's the hard one.
There was 2 goals for McDonald to get to that 85, and I'm not sure if he's going to kick 2 goals every game.
No.
Yeah, but Mackenzie's the tough one because it's the 23 touches, 456 meters game, which I think puts him third today. Also 7 contested possessions. So there's some good stats there. And on top of that, he's actually had 4 clangers. He's been the third highest clanger for Hawthorn. So potentially his score could have been higher.
Correct.
It's not and even his efficiency, so it's 78%, but it's not like he's gone 23 touches, 100% no clangers, where you're going, okay, there's no upside here at all. There's actual upside with that. He's given away a free kick. Yeah, he kicked the goal, which he's not going to do every week. But there's still, upside with that scoring, which you go, 180K. Clearly, they started him in the best 18 today. So there's enough confidence. Sam Mitchell's got enough confidence. He's a high draft pick. They took him for a reason. because there was Mateus Filipuli, a couple other options there for them at the time. They definitely I think Jai Clark could have gone to. I think Hawthorn had the pick before. So there was definitely some options there, and they've obviously done their research in him, and we know he's a very good ball user. So it's hard to ignore. Like, it's not a great price just because I hate paying up for the rookies, but these rookies are more expensive for a reason than that, because they're the guns.
Well, they're more expensive because they were taken. I think he was pick 5, right? So like 180K.
Yeah.
5 or 6, yeah.
But that's it. But they go at pick 5 because of the junior guns. Like that's it. It's hard to ignore.
Warples has 16 contested possessions.
Yeah, so I can't see him doing that every week. Can I? Can?
No. Do you reckon he's playing up because Tom Mitchell's on the opposite team and that kind of thing? The boys had that rivalry a little bit.
So he's had the little Warple. He's kicked at 60. He's actually efficiency's at 62% today. So on that argument, like, there's actually technically improvement with him.
Cam McKenzie is one that I think is someone who's likely going to play every game. I think he's one of those players that probably won't be subbed compared to someone like a Weddle, for example, who is likely to be a sub. I think Cam McKenzie's, he's playing in the mids. He's around the stoppages a lot. And his cleanliness and his cool demeanor has been really impressive. A lot of times there's like 2 players in front of him. He might fake a handball and split them and then pass it off beautifully inside 50. Like, I've loved what I've seen from this kid. I know there's 1,123K options. There really are, and 102Ks, but like, the sub risk, man, is so strong. You really want to nail your rookies and make sure that they are best 22 and not getting subbed out.
I think for me, because I've still got Finn in my side at the moment. So, Finn Callahan's being at 244. And all the reports is everything's great with him. But we haven't actually, as we talked before, we haven't seen it live. Like, it'd actually be great to watch. So if Finn Callahan, a bit like Dacos today, gives me questions, it's an easy drop down to make 60K that I can actually do stuff with. And then it might be a case where I've got more, because I hate Callahan's price, but he's naturally, like, everything says the extra year and the couple of years in the competition, the role should be there and that, but does it have to be there? Because you look at that and, Kelly, Canelio, Tom Green, they've got so many other options where, Where McKenzie, well, the Hawks are starting fresh here. It's like, okay, Newcomb, who are we pairing him with? Maybe it's Ward, McKenzie, and then a couple of little senior bodies to help them out. But, they're definitely about all the kids as Warple gets the ball again. It's hard. It'll be hard not to ignore, and it just gives me another option to think about. Will Phillips is another one. Like, how does, like, we were all expecting him just to be, he's there at nearly everybody's M8. But, we actually finally get to see it with Cunnington and Simpkin back in the side. I've already got Powell playing in that midfield as well. So where does Phillips actually sit in the pecking order of that team?
He'll be fine.
He should be fine. He should be fine. But what happens if for whatever reason it isn't? Like, with North Melbourne get all their guys back, and let's hypothetically say all of a sudden Phillips is starting on the bench and it's not a great game, and you're going, okay, we've just seen a great game from McKenzie. Phillips, it's not a great game. Is it worth spending the extra 20K to go from Phillips to McKenzie? There'll be questions there everybody will be having.
Yeah, I understand that. There's the thing with this year that I'm finding so hard to actually pick players is because there's so many people who are available and good at that kind of 300K mark. Like, Hopper's a must-have, basically. You have to have him, right?
Cam McKenzie, 3-4.
Dom Sheed having a really good kind of run at the moment. Okay, so previous scoring, that kind of thing, you got to kind of pick Dom Sheed. All right, now Warple's coming out and is basically saying, hey, I'm 100 scorer every week, maybe not even that, but at 300K, you need to average a 90. I think you can do that pretty easy. Now we're talking about Callahan, and there's like Wayne Green Miller, who is going to be there taking all the kickouts with Sinclair down back at St Kilda, and it's just like, come on, do you end up just running like 4 or 5 of these guys and Laird and then stacking the rest of your team?
I know, and that's the full time of that game. Like it's missed, so it's the they've got it by 6 points. But while we're here, it's just started the second quarter. Fremantle, Port Adelaide. Rosie's already on 37 Supercoach.
Ooh, nice.
You have to pick him.
It's
Cam McKenzie 101, Sicily 100, Warple 101,
Not bad.
Mitchell 109.
Yeah, he caught up a lot.
20 handballs out of 28 disposals.
Yeah, it's typical Mitchell game, and that just gets the ball handball. That's what we're talking about. There's his 110. Like I don't like. I think that's where he is, 100 to 110.
I just like this score down here, man. Look at this one, number 18. That's the one. That's the one I'm happy with.
Juan Francis.
Yeah, horny boy, 4 points. Good job. All right. How about I need to head off because it's getting late.
Yep.
How about we say our goodbyes and then thanks very much, Swizz. 1 sec.
Oh, it's good fun.
Thanks very much for coming on. It was a great kind of showing and then talking a lot about football, just in general in life and everything else is as you do in a 2.5 hour stream. We had a bit of fun with KO giving us a red flag on YouTube, so that was fun. And any cool things you've got coming up, Swizz?
Not really, actually. I think, just happy the footy season there, so I'll just be chilling back and watching some footy.
100%.
And where can the viewers find you, man?
Swizz26 on Twitter is the best space, and that just send me in that. But quite a few people inbox me stuff, or then the Supercoach Insider 100. Ben's very active on the Twitter, but I'm more than happy to talk shit about footy anytime. Excuse the language, but I love it. It's great. Footy, cricket, love it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Remember we've got our Supercoach group that you should go and subscribe to as well. Join our group, subscribe to us on Twitter, and follow the page, and you can win some amazing prizes there. Any final words, Joe?
Nah, thanks so much, guys, for popping in and watching some footy with us. We're going to be watching all the games and we'll be reviewing them all for you on Monday as well. So please make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell because we are pumping out the content for you boys.
Yeah. Week to go before footy's back. Well, 2 weeks really. After this weekend, it's like 10 days. I can't wait. It's going to be mad. See you guys. Catch you in the next one.